Chapter 1547. There was a kind of acting called acting like what one was acting, and there was another kind of acting called eyesore. Today, Jun Changshao had successfully demonstrated what it meant to be unbearable to watch, because it was simply too fake. Junren Tonggu almost vomited blood. What did this kid mean? Was he trying to embarrass himself? Jun Changshao's intention was actually very simple. He did not want to fight because there were more important things to deal with, such as informing the 10 great immortal sects that there would be a strong enemy 3 years later. But since his master wanted him to fight with Gu Hongjinren's disciple, then he would let him. It was just a spar anyway, it did not matter whether he won or lost. Go Sheng had really changed. If he had just been reborn into the lower realm, he would definitely be happy to fight if his strength allowed it. Of course, this black-robed man's strength was indeed not bad. It could be seen from the speed of his charge that he was looking forward to the battle of the promise of 10 years. Despicable guy. Gu Hongjinren's face was gloomy. You deliberately threw in the towel, are you looking down on my disciple? If he had defeated Jun Changshao fair and square, he would be very pleased, but this eyesore made him feel like he had been humiliated. Senior, please don't misunderstand. Jun Changshao said, I just don't want to delay the meeting that is about to start. Ding! Side quest triggered. He pulled open the data panel. The side quest was spar with Gu Hongjinren's disciple and win. However, Jun Changshao stood up and patted the dust off his body. His expression and tone were extremely serious. If you really want to spar, then I will accompany you to the end. At this time. No matter how big the world is, it is not as important as my mission. He Toei. The system could not help but spit out. Before there was a mission, Jun Changshao did not care. Now that there was a mission, he had to treat it seriously. So when the two stood in the square again, the atmosphere became serious. All the warriors realized that there was going to be a fight, so they all gathered around to watch the show. Fighting was prohibited in the sacred city, but since it was the two disciples of the immortal, they could only turn a blind eye. Come. Jun Changshao hooked his finger. This time, the black-robed man didn't attack immediately, because his attack just now was fast and fierce, but it didn't hurt him at all, so his strength should be extraordinary. You're not coming. Let me do it. Shwa. Jun Changshao rushed over with his unpredictable movements. Gu Hongjinren asked in astonishment, Ling Xiao's Ling Xiao after image art. How did this kid learn it? Boom. Boom. At this moment, the crisscrossing shadows of fists filled the square. The more he looked, the more surprised he was. Because the moves that the opponent used were all from the 7 sages of Ethereal Hall. A satisfied smile appeared on Junren Tonggu's face. He had taught this kid in the extreme cave abode for 2 years, and the only thing that made him feel gratified was that he had learned many of his good friend's martial skills, and he was able to comprehend them perfectly. Boom! Boom! The black-robed man wasn't weak either. He easily dispelled the fist imprints. The two of them fought at close range and from time to time at long range. The battle scene was very exciting. The onlookers were a little dumbfounded. The two of them weren't fighting a battle of life and death, but it was very pleasing to the eye. Artistic. Too artistic. Boom. Jun Changshao and the black-robed man punched each other, and he took a few steps back with a smile on his face. After coming to the upper realm, he had always been dedicated to the development of the sect. Even if there was a battle, it was nothing more than relying on cheating. Today's battle with this person was undoubtedly the most formal. Friend. Jun Changshao rolled up his sleeves and said, I'm going to get serious. TSK Gu Hongjinren sneered. He could tell from the short exchange that his disciple was evenly matched with the opponent. Even if he got serious, what could he do? Could he go to heaven? Whoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao gathered the power of true spirit in his palm and used the sect's mainstream martial skill, the sky-crossing palm print. Spiritual energy whistled out and quickly gathered in mid-air to form a palm print with an explosive momentum. The palm print wasn't too big at first, but when it pressed toward the black-robed man, it suddenly expanded infinitely, like a small mountain falling from above. Gu Hongjinren was dumbfounded. Jinren Tonggu and Masato Kitano were also stunned. The moment Jun Changshao used the sky-crossing palm print, the three top experts realized that he had reached the peak of the revolving core realm. Just a moment ago, he was only at the 6th or 7th revolving core realm. How did he suddenly reach the peak? The black-robed man with the protective mirror was difficult to see through whether it was his cultivation or appearance. As for Jun Changshao, who was using the hidden cultivation technique, as long as he didn't deliberately release his cultivation, no one could see through him. Competing in concealment? Sorry, I'm better at concealing myself. Whoosh, whoosh. The sky-crossing palm print formed by the power of true spirit pressed down with an extremely powerful momentum. Facing such a martial skill from the peak of the revolving core realm, the black-robed man could only stand there and receive it miserably. Because he couldn't dodge or move. However, just as the palm print was about to press down, it suddenly stopped in front of his head, and the shock wave directly sent him flying. Gu Hongjinren's face was ashen. Just the momentum of the palm print was enough to send his disciple flying. This was too much of a blow to his self-esteem. The black-robed man retreated dozens of steps before stabilizing himself with difficulty. Then, he cupped his hands and said in a hoarse voice, "You win, I lose." Ding! Side mission completed. Obtained 1 million contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 194,000. It was completed just like that. This was simply a free point question. Jun Changshao removed the sky-crossing palm print and cupped his hands. Thank you for letting me win. Actually, if he had attacked just now, the black-robed man would definitely have been severely injured. However, he chose to go easy on him because Gu Hongjinren had helped him in the sect of all times before. Jun Patriarch. The black-robed man said, "On the appointed day, you and I will fight again." This guy's voice was still very hoarse, and it sounded like he was doing it on purpose. I don't think it's necessary. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, whether it's sparring or fighting, as long as my opponent loses to me, there is no possibility of a comeback. These words were arrogant. However, looking at Go Sheng's growth, this was indeed the case. In the beginning, there were many martial artists who were stronger than him. However, as long as they were surpassed, they were destined to be left in the dust. They could only stand at the foot of the mountain and look up at the imposing figure. For example, Qin Haran of the Grand Qi sect. When Jun Changshao was rising, he made things difficult for him. What about now? He had become the most insignificant existence among the masses. On the other hand, Go Sheng had soared and ascended to the upper realm. He began to compete with higher forces and continued to write his own legend. Me. Go Sheng. I allow you to be stronger than me. However, as long as I improve, sorry, it will be difficult for you to surpass me. Is that so? The black-robed man said with a faint smile, as if he did not approve of Jun Changshao's arrogance. However, he seemed to be certain that he could defeat him on the appointed day. Disciple. Gu Hongjinren said coldly, the winner can only be proven with actions. There is no need to waste words with him. Let's go. Tui. Jinren Tonggu spat out a mouthful of phlegm without any manners. My fucking disciple won the sparring match. If his disciple won, who knows how smug he would be. Watching Gu Hongjinren and his disciple disappear from sight, Jun Changshao thought to himself, why did this guy hide himself so well? The system said, maybe he's an acquaintance. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, after being healed by you, he definitely wouldn't recognize him. He would not forget that this guy once said that the 10th person with the innate demonic body might be an acquaintance. In the end, he was just a passerby. Although he and the others had joined the sect of all times, they did not deserve to have a name. This time, I'm sure. The system said, he must be an acquaintance. Otherwise, he would not deliberately hide his appearance and change his voice. Chapter 1548. When Jun Changshao defeated the black-robed man, not only was Jinren Tonggu happy, but he was also shocked by his cultivation base. On the way to the city magistrate's mansion, he asked, "Apprentice, did you gain a deeper understanding of the secret manual? Is that why you broke through from the 6th revolution to the peak?" Years ago, Go Sheng had made up a lie, saying that he was cultivating some sort of martial art, and that his cultivation base had been suppressed. Only by gaining enlightenment could he break through. There was no other way. How else could he explain it? Now that his master was asking him about it, Jun Changxiao's answer would definitely be, "That's right." At this point, he had no choice but to continue making things up. There was no way that Jun Changxiao would say that he had reached the peak because he had sacrificed his sworn brother. When he thought about Gu Zhaoxi, Go Sheng's heart ached. "My dear brother. Have you been reborn? Have you been born into a good family?" Back in the mountain and sea realm, Gu Zhaoxi lay in a medicinal bath. His meridians were being nourished, and a look of bliss appeared on his face. "With such good parents, I'll have to work a few thousand years less." Why did he say that? Because he had drunk the milk of the 9 dragons' flood dragon, eaten the juice of the 9 spirits' sacred fruit, and now had all sorts of precious materials nourishing his body. Gu Zhaoxi, who was less than a month old, had undergone a massive transformation. If he started cultivating the Tao of martial arts, he would definitely soar. Furthermore, his father and mother were peak experts, and had all sorts of profound martial arts. He didn't need to cultivate any of the previous ones. Wouldn't it be wonderful if he could just learn something more advanced? The more Gu Zhaoxi thought about it, the happier he became. Good things didn't last long. A few days later, a guest came to visit, and he burst into tears. It was the realm lord and his wife who had come to visit the Gu clan couple. No, they weren't humans. They were beasts with human bodies and crocodile heads. In human terms, they were absolutely hideous. Were they, the #1 handsome man and #1 beautiful woman in the mountain and sea realm? Dad! Are you blind? Are you trying to screw me over? The reason the realm lords of the mountain and sea realm had come to visit was, of course, to see their future son-in-law. They had taken a liking to him at first glance, and had begun to discuss when they would get married. In the end, they had settled on 16, which was the legal age for marriage in the realm. Hearing them talking about his wedding day, Gu Zhaoxi was so angry that he cried. If he had the ability to speak, he would have said loudly, "I object to this marriage." There were countless examples of humans and demons getting married, and he himself was not against it. However, if his parents looked like this, his daughter would definitely not be any better. If he really got married in the future, wouldn't he fall into hell? No. When he grew up, he would run away. Mr. and Mrs. Gu were worried sick about their son's marriage. Gu Zhaoxi, who was not even a month old, was already thinking of running away from the marriage. Holy City, City Lord's Mansion. When Jun Changxiao walked in with his master and Senior Qi Yi, many experts with powerful auras gathered outside the courtyard. Senior Tong Gu. Senior Qi Yi. The various major forces and independent cultivators all cupped their fists, their eyes shining with admiration. When they saw Jun Changxiao, they hurriedly cupped their fists and smiled. Jun Patriarch. Without the previous invasion, Go Sheng would have been nothing more than Jinren Tonggu's disciple in the eyes of the various cultivators. Now, however, they truly regarded him as an important figure. Jun Changxiao had been a patriarch for a long time. Since he had come to such an occasion, he naturally had to be smooth and slick. Thus, he greeted everyone with a smile on his face. He was now as humble as he had been arrogant earlier. The most eye-catching person was still the Rose of Flowers, who was accompanying Jun Changshao. After all, the new clothes she was wearing were simply too eye-catching. There were many women in the city lord's mansion, and all of them were quite good-looking. However, compared to the Rose of Flowers, they were completely crushed. The only one who could stand up to her was probably Empress Lingyao. Jun Changshao straightened his back. Wasn't the reason why he had prepared this dress for this woman? Although Gou Sheng could be very despicable at times, he still cared about his reputation when attending such a grand occasion. The Rose of Flowers wore a long blue dress, and it completely overshadowed all the other women present. This greatly satisfied his vanity. Everyone. At this moment, the city lord of the sacred city walked out and cupped his fists with a smile. The meeting will begin tomorrow morning. Your accommodations have been arranged. Please follow the servants. Thank you for your hospitality, City Lord Ing. Everyone cupped their fists and followed the servants to their accommodations. Jun Changshao also followed. However, his accommodations were different from his master's, so he was arranged to stay in the southern wing. Jun Patriarch. The soldier in charge of leading the way led them to a courtyard with a good environment and said respectfully, "This will be the room that you and your wife will be staying in for the time being. Please let me know if you need anything." Jun Changshao asked, "Just one bedroom?" This sentence stunned the soldier. He said weakly, "Jun Patriarch and your wife need 2 bedrooms. Jun Changshao also realized that his question was a little stupid, so he waved his hand and said, "There's nothing else. You can leave. Goodbye." After the soldier left, Rose of Flowers smiled and said, "Who's sleeping in the bedroom?" Although the two of them were already husband and wife, whether it was in the Soul Continent or in the Sect of all times, they had always lived in their own courtyards and had never interacted with each other. The higher-ups and disciples of the sect felt that it was very strange, but they did not dare to ask. Junren Tonggu was puzzled because he heard about it. Why were the husband and wife still living in separate rooms? Thinking about it, he wondered if his disciple was sick. Here came the question. Who told him about this? Su Xiaomai expressed that he would not take the blame for this. Jun Changshao said lightly, "I still have to cultivate." Okay. Rose of Flowers looked at the sky and walked into the bedroom. Then I'll go to sleep. Creak. The door opened and closed. Jun Changshao stood in the courtyard and felt the cold wind blowing. He shook his head and said, "She's not polite at all." The courtyard and rooms arranged by the city lord could barely make do for a night, but Gou Sheng still chose to sit in the stone pavilion and cultivate. He thought of the black-robed man he met earlier. He did not care why the other party hid his appearance and changed his voice. What he cared about was that when he was serious about the fight, this guy restrained himself. In the west wing, Gu Hongzhenren stood in front of the window of the study and looked at the scenery outside. He said, "Are you confident that you can defeat that kid on the appointed day?" He was also one of the participants, so he was arranged to have his own room. "Before I see him, your disciple is not sure." The black-robed man in front of the door said, "After fighting with him today, I'm 90% sure." These words sounded very arrogant, but when they came out of his mouth, they sounded very calm, as if it was a matter of course. Ha ha ha. Gu Hongzhenren laughed and said, "I like your confidence, so I didn't hesitate to sacrifice my life to bring you up from the mortal world. Master, please rest assured." The black-robed man raised his head slightly, and the corner of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a canine tooth. He said, "On the appointed day, your disciple will definitely defeat him." Achoo! Sitting in the stone pavilion, Jun Changshao sneezed and rubbed his nose. He said, "The wind is a bit strong." Chapter 1549. The next day. In the main hall of the city lord's mansion, powerhouses from various sects and clans entered one after another and sat according to the name cards placed on the table. Needless to say, the conference this time was quite professional. The tables and chairs inside could accommodate all the people present. Tsk tisk. Jun Changshao followed his master into the hall, and as he looked at all the powerful cultivators gathered here, he sighed inwardly. Those who are able to participate in this competition are all important figures in the upper realm. At this moment, Gu Hongzhenren walked in with his disciple. He glanced coldly at Jinren Tonggu, then arrogantly found his seat and sat down. Jun Changshao had nothing to do, so he took a closer look at the black-robed man. However, due to the protection of the treasure, he could not see his appearance at all, let alone the level of his realm. One word, mysterious. The more mysterious he was, the more curious he would be. Therefore, Jun Changshao had been wondering what was so special about this guy. Disciple. Jinren Tonggu said telepathically, this disciple of Gu Hong's was brought up from the lower realm. I heard that he's the child of the dimension. Child of the dimension? Jun Changshao said in surprise, that's quite impressive. Although the lower realm could not be compared to the upper realm, since he had the identity of the child of the dimension, he was definitely considered a genius. Wait a minute. Strictly speaking, he was the ruler of the falling star continent. If he had children in the future, would they not be the child of the dimension? Sigh. Since he was not the son of the celestial emperor, he would work hard to let his descendants enjoy a prominent identity. The premise is, the system complained. The host has to be capable. How do you know I can't? Can you? Why can't I? Fine, you can. In such a solemn conference, Go Sheng almost quarreled with the system. Of course, while Jun Changshao was observing the black-robed man was also observing him. However, because he hid it too well, he could not see the changes in his facial expression. About a moment later, the powerhouses represented by the 10 great immortal sects walked in. Among them, there were elders who had gone to the sect of all times before. There were also elders who he did not recognize. Their auras were strong, and it was obvious that they were not ordinary. This meeting in the holy city was initiated by the 10 great immortal sects, so when they appeared, the big shots of the various sects and forces all stood up to welcome them. Jun Changshao did not stand up. To tell the truth, he didn't have a good impression of the 10 major celestial sects. If it wasn't for the fact that it concerned the safety of the upper realm, he wouldn't have bothered to participate. Jinren Tonggu, Masato Kitano, and Gu Hongzhenren did not stand up either. The various sects and powers had to act according to the immortal sect's wishes, but these rogue cultivators didn't care at all. As if they understood the personalities of these people, although the 10 great immortal sects were displeased, they didn't say anything. After taking their seats, they announced the official start of the meeting. Since it was a meeting, there must be a theme. The main topic of the discussion this time was where the 10 warships came from and whether they would still invade the upper realm. Everyone. Elder Zeng of the Lingtian Immortal Sect moistened his throat and was about to speak, but he was stopped by Jun Changshao. The 10 warships came from the Star Spirit realm. This realm is extremely proficient in the Tao of array formations. They can travel from the distant universe to our upper realm. As soon as these words were said, everyone started to discuss. Star Spirit realm? I don't think I've heard of it. TSK. The upper universe is so big. Not to mention the Star Spirit realm, even the mountain and sea realm of the same system, you probably haven't heard of it. Jun Patriarch. Elder Zeng said, how do you know? Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and tapped his fingers on the table. He said, among the fighter jets that flew out of the warships, one of them happened to land in the ancient Immortal Mountain. My array formation hull cracked it and obtained a lot of information. Are you sure? The powerhouses of the 10 great immortal sects expressed their doubts. You don't have to believe me. Jun Changshao put his hands on the table and leaned forward. He said with the most serious expression, "But there's bad news that I need to tell you. In 3 years, they will come again, and there will be more of them than before." The invasion of the star spirit realm was related to the entire upper realm, so he would not hide it. After all, when the day came, he would have to rely on the 10 great immortal sects and other forces to fight against them. If he had the strength, he would help. If not, he would just be a bystander. Elder Zeng looked at the powerhouses of the 9 great immortal sects with a worried look in his eyes. In fact, before the meeting was held, the 10 great immortal sects had sat together to discuss and even speculate whether the invaders would come again. Now, the patriarch of the sect of all times had given a specific time. Not to mention whether it was reliable or not, they had to prepare for a rainy day to prevent disaster from happening and not be able to deal with it immediately. Of course. Jun Changshao said, "At present, the biggest threat to the upper realm is the newly resurrected demon ancestor. Even the invasion of the foreign warships is probably related to that guy." "What do you mean?" Elder Zeng asked. The experts from the various factions also turned their gazes over. This meeting was supposed to focus on the 10 great immortal sects, but Jun Changshao beat them to it. He mentioned the star spirit realm and the impending danger in the next 3 years, instantly becoming the most dazzling presence in the meeting. The sudden invasion of the foreign forces coincided with the resurrection of the demon ancestor. If the two are not related, do you think it's possible? Everyone fell silent. Indeed, the demon ancestor had just been resurrected and the upper realm was invaded. It was too much of a coincidence. According to the documents I've checked. Jun Changshao said, the demonic tribe was not part of the myriad tribe system in the beginning, but they suddenly appeared in the upper realm. I'm afraid there's something fishy going on. Jun Patriarch, you mean? Elder Zeng said with a serious expression, the demonic tribe came from the star spirit realm. The sudden invasion of the foreign warships was caused by the demon ancestor. It's possible, Jun Changshao said. Great. A bad-tempered powerhouse said angrily, the demon ancestor and his demonic tribe are spies who sneaked into the upper realm. No wonder they were so ambitious 100,000 years ago. Although they were resurrected, their vitality must have been greatly damaged. The demonic region was sealed by the ancestors. They knew they couldn't beat us, so they could only ask for help. Zhenren Tonggu said. Jun Changshao secretly praised his master. He was just leading the demon ancestor on. He quickly came up with a reasonable explanation. There was no prior rehearsal, but they could cooperate tacitly. During this time, Gou Sheng had been thinking about a problem. How did the whole world know that Yao Menjing had a complete innate holy demonic body? It could be said that it spread throughout the upper realm in just a day. Someone was obviously paying for a water army to lead the way and deliberately target the sect of all times. Who was it? The most suspicious person was definitely the demon ancestor. After the girl inherited the whole body, it meant that he had nothing left. It was normal for him to be angry and play some tricks. Although there was no absolute evidence, Jun Changshao was certain that the demon ancestor was behind it. He had to let him know that if he played tricks with him, he would play tricks with him. That's right. Elder Zeng slammed the table and said with a cold gaze, the most important thing now is to find the demon ancestor. This spy is the biggest threat to the upper realm. The demon ancestor, who was recuperating, would vomit blood if he knew that Jun Changshao was deliberately leading the way and he was instantly labeled as a spy. Everyone. Jun Changshao said again, the resurrection of the demon ancestor has always been secretly planned by the Buried Moon Pavilion. According to the Sect of All Times Intelligence, this organization has a very important branch in the Sea King City. Yao Menjing was controlled by the Heavenly Vision earlier. This grudge would not be forgotten. If they wanted to play tricks, the Buried Moon Pavilion would definitely be involved. If the 10 major celestial sects could get rid of them together, it would undoubtedly be the best. Kill with a borrowed knife. I, Jun Changshao, know how to play this game too. Chapter 1550. The meeting ended. To be exact, it was Jun Changshao who had forcefully shortened the time. The 10 great immortal sects immediately deployed a large number of people to Sea King's city to thoroughly investigate the buried moon pavilion and the demon ancestors' hiding place. The buried moon pavilion had always existed and had always been under the responsibility of the realm hall. However, this time it involved a spy and the safety of the entire upper realm, so they had to be serious enough. Jun Changshao didn't participate because since it was a borrowed knife, he definitely didn't need to do it himself. He just needed to quietly wait for the results. Disciple. The next day, Jinren Tonggu said, "Aren't we leaving? Sacred City is one of the largest cities in the upper realm. Since we're here, we have to stroll around for a few days." Jun Changshao said. Jinren Tonggu wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Masato Kitano's gaze. He transmitted his voice, "Your disciple and your disciple's wife finally came out. Naturally, we have to enjoy our two-person world." That made sense. Jinren Tonggu said, "All right then, we'll go back to the extreme cave abode first." After watching the two leave, Jun Changshao said lightly, "Let's go." "Where to?" Rose of Flowers asked. "Shopping." Accompanying a girl shopping was such a romantic thing, but when it came out of Jun Changshao's mouth, it was really full of steel. Of course, a woman like Rose of Flowers who had fought all over the world definitely didn't have the hobby of shopping. However, since her husband said so, she could only leave the city lord's mansion with him. As a first-class city, there were many tourists in Sacred City. The streets were very lively, and the sound of peddling and discussing was endless. Sister Jiao. A young man walked to the jewelry shop and smiled, "What style do you like? I'll buy it for you." The girl behind lowered her head and said with a red face, "Brother Xian, you've already bought me several, don't spend any more money." "No." The man called Brother Xian said, "My future wife must wear the best jewelry." This kind of public display of affection attracted the contempt of a group of single dogs. There might be many readers among them, and their eyes were filled with jealousy and hatred. "Boss." Older brother Xian chose an exquisite ring and said, "This. I'm very sorry." A voice came from behind, "I've bought all the jewelry in the jewelry shop. You can go to the next shop. Buy all of them." "So rich?" Older brother Xian turned his head to look and saw a handsome young man standing behind him. Beside him stood a beautiful woman dressed in strange clothes. "So beautiful," Jiao Mei said in a low voice, feeling ashamed of her own inferiority. It was Jun Changshao and Rose of Flowers. One was handsome, and the other was beautiful. They immediately became the absolute focus of the street. "Pa!" Go Xing casually threw a spatial ring on the counter and said with an indifferent expression, "There are a million profound stones inside. Is it enough to buy all the jewelry?" The boss took the ring in surprise and used his spiritual sense to check it. He quickly smiled and said, "It's enough, it's enough." "Friend." Older brother Xian took a few steps back, cupped his fists and said, "Generous, admirable." This was a polite remark. Translated into another way, it meant, "Brother, you really put in a lot of effort to pick up girls. I, your younger brother, admit defeat." After buying all the jewelry, Jun Changshao turned and left. On the way, Rose of Flowers asked in confusion, "Why did you buy me so much jewelry?" "Of course I'm wearing it." Jun Changshao said, "Are you going to use it as a medicinal plant?" Rose of Flowers didn't say anything, but her heart was filled with sweetness. "I bought all the jewelry in the jewelry shop and gave it to you. My husband loves me very much." Actually, she didn't have the habit of wearing jewelry. She even felt uncomfortable wearing earrings or necklaces, so she didn't usually wear any jewelry. Jun Changshao didn't notice at first. It wasn't until he arrived at the city lord's mansion and saw many women dressed luxuriously with jewelry all over their bodies that he realized that dresses alone weren't enough. They also needed jewelry to set off their temperament. Careless, negligent. Therefore, the first thing he did when he came shopping was to buy jewelry. He bought all the jewelry in the jewelry shop directly. This operation was a bit like a domineering CEO. He planted roses, moved the sea of flowers, and Go Sheng did something similar to iron. If you think it's normal, then it's right. Because people change, and change requires a process. When you get used to it, it's the same as going through the process. Take Yi Xingchen for example. From being arrogant when he first entered the sect to compromising and becoming a disciple, never taking the sect as an honor, to living and dying with his fellow sect members now, the change was not small. Some people might think at first, how could the dignified Knight Emperor put down his pride after committing to Iron Bone? By the time the plot reached this point, perhaps no one would think about it anymore. They might even think that Knight Emperor integrated into the sect as a matter of course, for various reasons and various experiences. Jun Changshao stayed in the holy city for 2 days and set off with rows of flowers to return to the sect. The 10 immortal sects were intensifying the investigation of Buried Moon Pavilion. The entire upper realm suddenly became serious after the meeting ended. After returning to the sect of all times, Jun Changshao also began to prepare actively. After all, the star spirit world would invade 3 years later. If the immortal sects and other major forces could not resist, he would definitely need strength to protect the sect. Of course. Go Sheng was not particularly anxious because he had many trump cards that he had not revealed. For example, the Million Devil Tribe soldiers in the forest. Speaking of soldiers, Jun Changshao was reminded of the First Revolution pill. If this type of pill was refined successfully, all the disciples would reach the First Revolution realm. Their battle strength would definitely soar. Hall Master Miao. Jun Changshao came to the poison refinery hall and asked, "How's the research going?" Miao Saifeng said, "We've refined many types of antidote pills, but we'll only know if they're effective after consuming them. There were too many poison ingredients in the First Revolution pill." Even as a poison expert, she could not be sure if the antidote pills refined had the effect of detoxification. She had to test it personally to know. "All right." Jun Changshao said, "I'll call Du Hongchen and the rest over to refine this pill for testing." "Who's going to test the pill?" "My brother." When Go Sheng blurted out this sentence, he immediately realized that Gu Zhaoxi had already left. The 7th day of the month was over. If there were any corpses left, they should have started to rot by now. Wait a minute. His brother had left, who was going to test the pill? When Gu Zhaoxi was around, he did not feel that it was important. After he left, he realized that without a reincarnation spirit, there were many things that could not be done. In the small mountain village, Gu Tianxing held an exquisite little box and shook it in front of his son. He grinned and said, "My son, father has prepared a quick growth pill for you. When you grow up, take it and you'll definitely be able to increase your realm quickly." Bang! Mother Gu kicked over and scolded, "This pill is extremely poisonous. If you dare to give it to my son, I'll fight you to the death." Wife. Gu Tianxing fell a few dozen meters away and said, "I've already neutralized the poison in this pill." After saying that, he fainted gloriously. Gu Zhaoxi sighed secretly, "Poor father." A few days later, Feng Gue Chen, Du Hongchen, and the others put down the business of the Eternal Pill Store and gathered at the Sect of all times. They successfully refined a batch of First Revolution pills with the materials provided by the Medical Hall and Poison Refinery Hall. "Everyone," Jun Changshao said solemnly, "who's going to test the pill?" Chapter 1551. The One Revolution Quick Success Pill was refined. However, the toxicity was too strong, so someone had to test it personally. There were many tests to be done, because Hall Master Miao had prepared more than 10 antidotes. "I'll do it." Outside the hall, Lu Qianshan, dressed in white, walked over. She had been training in the Nine Heavens mystery realm all this time, so she rarely appeared in front of her fellow disciples. "Eldest senior sister." Li Qingyang said, "Let me do it." "I'll do it." Su Xiaomua took a step forward. The other disciples expressed their willingness to test the poison themselves. If it were any other sect, many disciples would be very hesitant after learning that the pill was refined from various poisons and had a high level of toxicity. Sorry. The sect of all times was different. This was a sect that was both silly and happy. They did not care about life and death in such matters. "Ah no." Jun Changshao said, "What about you?" Yi Xingchen fell silent. As a core disciple, he should have expressed his stance earlier, but he did not say anything. After a while, Yi Xingchen said, "If this pill can poison someone to death, can I not test it?" "Reason," Jun Changshao said. Yi Xingchen clenched his fists and said with a cold gaze, "I haven't taken my revenge." Even though the one revolution quick success pill would not kill someone, it would have unpredictable negative effects due to the toxicity. Hence, he did not want to waste time on this. If there was no grudge between them, Anyo would have taken the pill without hesitation and shouted to his fellow disciples, "I'll test the pill. Don't snatch it from me." Jun Changshao stood up and picked up the pill. He smiled and said, "Of course I have to do this personally for such a dangerous matter." He was very pleased that the disciples were fighting to be the first to test the poison. Hence, the most dangerous thing was still for the parents to do. The children's mission was to grow up healthily. Patriarch. Miao Saifeng frowned and said, "The toxicity is very strong. Don't be rash." "Yes." Elder Wei said, "You are the patriarch of the sect of all times. Nothing can happen to you." Rows of flowers stood next to him. She did not stop her husband from testing the poison because she knew that he valued his disciples very much and would not let them test the poison. "I've made up my mind," Jun Changshao said. Everyone fell silent. After spending so much time with the patriarch, everyone knew what his temper was like. Raw. Take it with warm water. The poison will be milder. What about wine? That should work. Qingyang, bring the wine. Hua hua hua. A bowl of drunken dreaming was served. Jun Changshao raised his hand confidently and looked at the worried disciples. He said, "It's not like you're going to die for sure. Smile for me." Li Qingyang and Su Xiaomua forced themselves to smile. Their expressions were uglier than crying. Woo-woo. Lu Wancher immediately cried and said, "Patriarch, if anything happens to you, I will serve you many delicious Chinese delicacies in front of your grave every year on this day." Jun Changxiao's face was crumbling. This lass had already grown into a young lady, but her words were still so childish. The atmosphere in the hall was very sorrowful. The higher-ups and disciples were all silently praying in their hearts that the patriarch would be safe and sound after testing the poison with his body. Miao Saifeng carefully checked the refined antidote pills and arranged them neatly on the table. She said, "There are numbers on it. After the host consumes the elixir pills, you must take them in order." N. Jun Changshao nodded. On the other side, Sun Bukong and his medical team were already in position. They were trying to provide timely treatment if the patriarch had an accident. Woo-woo. Lu Wancher wiped her tears and choked, "Second senior brother, should we send someone to clean up the spirit beast hall in advance?" Jun Changshao almost fell. In order to prevent this lass from continuing her childish words, he quickly held the bowl with one hand and picked up the elixir pills with the other. Patriarch. All the disciples cried out in grief as though it was a life and death parting. At the same time, the song, "Two Springs Reflecting the Moon," echoed in the hall. Everyone was heartbroken and teary. Dear disciples, farewell forever. Jun Changshao opened his mouth and slowly handed the elixir pills over. Just as it was about to enter his mouth, a voice came from outside the hall. I am Zi Tsangdao transformed Kuan. My resistance to poison is stronger than the patriarch. Let me test the elixir. Ta! Ta! Hall Master Z carried the stereo and played the transcendental background music. He walked over with a resolute expression. Are you sure? Sure, sure. Here. The scene changed. Hall Master Z stood in front of the elixir testing table and had a wonderful expression. He saw that the disciples were on the verge of breaking down and couldn't help but take the initiative to test the elixir on behalf of the patriarch. In the end, that fellow didn't even decline and asked him to do it. No. Such a long emotional preparation. Was it prepared for me? Patriarch. Hall Master Z said seriously, you should do it. Don't waste time. Jun Changshao sat down and said, you said that you wanted to test the elixir. Everyone heard it. After saying that, he took out the eru and played a sorrowful tune to boost Hall Master Z's courage. Woo woo. Lu Wanshi, Yao Menjing, and the others cried sadly. The current situation was that Hall Master Z wasn't dead yet and they had already entered the morning hall to pay their respects. Z was so angry that his eyelids kept rolling up. However, since he had said it, he couldn't back down. Therefore, he remembered the sequence of the antidote given by Miao Saifeng and decisively threw the elixir into his mouth. Gulp. The sound of swallowing could be heard. Jun Changshao stopped playing the eru and stared at the Purple King. Sun Bukong and his medical team subconsciously moved closer. All kinds of first aid equipment were ready. All pairs of eyes were on Z. He was worthy of being called the brightest and most dazzling member of the sect of all times. Ah! Ah! Suddenly, Monster King Z Craggy clutched his neck and screamed in pain. Take the antidote quickly. Miao Saifeng said hurriedly. The Purple King's body swayed and reached for the antidote bottle nearby. However, he accidentally knocked it all over. Then, he knelt on the ground in pain. The veins on his face were bulging and looked very scary. Swoosh! Jun Changshao rushed over and took out an antidote from bottle number 1 and stuffed it into his mouth. However, it didn't have any effect. He was still in great pain. Change to another one. Miao Saifeng said hurriedly. Swoosh! Jun Changshao continued to bring out bottles number 2 and 3. Even after he had eaten all the antidotes, the purple craggy Monster King's face was still as ferocious as before. It's over. Miao Saifeng said, it's not working. Then what should we do? Jun Changshao said anxiously. Sigh. Miao Saifeng turned around and said in a heavy tone, prepare for the funeral. Ah! Jun Changshao was stunned. Hall Master Z. Li Qingyang and Su Xiaomua cried out in grief. Their tears were definitely not forced out. System. Jun Changshao roared in his heart, what should we do? It's very simple. The system said, host, put your hand on his wrist and activate the emergency mode again. As a life-saving trump card at the cost of losing 3 points, not only could it help Jun Changshao resolve the crisis, it could also help others resolve the crisis. Just like Yao Menjing who was sitting on him in the land of demon affinity. Then what are you waiting for? Jun Changshao rushed over and put his hand on the Purple King's wrist. He shouted, activate it now. Ding! Do you want to spend all your contribution points to resolve the current crisis? Yes. Ding! Sect contribution points, 0, ding. Do you want to spend all your achievement points to resolve the current crisis? Why are you talking so much nonsense when it's a matter of life and death? Just as he was about to shout, yes, the Purple King suddenly stood up and laughed. Su Xiaomua, how's my acting now? Jun Changshao's eyes widened instantly. He turned his head stiffly and saw that this guy's face was normal. There were no signs of poisoning at all. Only then did he realize that he had been tricked. Hence, he slowly shouted a few words, "Me. Fuck. Your grandpa." Chapter 1552. When Su Xiaomo was working as a spy in Taishianxingzong, he needed someone to put on a show. In the end, the patriarch sent the Purple King. Su Xiaomo's acting was so awkward that he couldn't bear to look at it. There was no choice. In terms of acting, monsters were naturally lacking. However, Z was not convinced. Why couldn't the beasts do what humans could do? If they couldn't do it innately, they could only do it later. Therefore, Hall Master Z had been secretly thinking about acting for all these years. He was all talk and no action. He needed to use a real performance to prove himself. Today's pill test was undoubtedly an opportunity. Therefore, after making sure that he could withstand the poison, he began his performance. His facial expression when he was in pain, as well as the slightest movements of his limbs, were impeccable. Even the appearance of his sweat was gradually increasing. Su Xiaomo believed him. Jun Changxiao believed him. The entire sect of all time's upper echelons and disciples believed him. This also meant that even if one was born with no acting skills, as long as they were willing to work hard, they would eventually become a qualified actor. Hall Master Z. Su Xiaomo gave him a thumbs up and said, "I'm convinced." Back then, he almost broke down when he acted with this guy. Today, his performance was flawless. He had already become an actor. Phew. Li Qingyang and the others heaved a sigh of relief. It turned out that Hall Master Z was acting. Needless to say, his acting was so real that they almost thought he was going to die. The disciples' mentality and expressions were no longer important. What was important was that Jun Changxiao's expression gradually turned from stiff to angry. One of his eyes was spewing out hot flames, while the other was shrouded in an evil light. I activated the crisis resolution mode and instantly lost nearly 2 million contribution points. You are fucking acting. Fine. I'll let you act to your heart's content. In an instant, Jun Changxiao rushed over, grabbed Z's arm, and threw him over his shoulder. His left fist drew the power of the fire soul, and his right fist drew the power of evil. He crazily bombarded the other party's face like a storm. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Under the violent explosion of energy, the hall trembled violently. Li Qingyang looked up and saw the beams shaking and dust falling off. He said in shock, "It's over." Boom! Unable to withstand the explosion of power, the main hall collapsed. Pooh! Pooh! The upper echelons and disciples walked out of the rubble with their faces covered in dirt. Then, they looked forward and saw that the patriarch was still riding on Hall Master Z's body. While being bombarded by the torrential rain, the anger around him seemed to have turned into a demon. What the hell is going on? Who can tell us? Boom boom. Boom boom boom. The sound of heavy punches could be heard continuously, from day to night, and then to dawn. How long had Jun Changxiao tortured Hall Master Z? How long had Li Qingyang been standing in front of the ruins? He wasn't feeling sorry for Z, but for the palace. After all, this was something that he had personally built. Patriarch. Lu Wancher walked over and said, "Take a break and eat something." Boom. Jun Changxiao gave him another fierce punch. Only then did he stand up with an aching waist and back. The camera did not give the Purple King a close-up because he had been beaten up for an entire day and night. The scene was unbearable to watch. In the cafeteria, Jun Changxiao's hand that was holding the chopsticks was trembling. Once he thought of the 2 million contribution points being cleared, his expression was pained as he pressed his chest against the table. Sigh. The system said helplessly, "I knew that the host would be very concerned, so I asked for the 3 points separately. After activating the crisis resolution mode in the land of demon affinity, it answered on behalf of Jun Changshao and cleared the 3 points directly. Just now, it asked for the contribution points first, then the achievement points, and then the reputation points. Its purpose was to make him feel regret. Luckily, it had asked for them separately and only cleared the contribution points. If the other 2 points were gone, there would probably be a barbecue on the main peak's training ground right now, with cumin and chili all over the body of the Purple King. No need to be sad. The system consoled, it's only 2 million. Jun Changshao roared in his heart, 2 million is not considered money. The system said, this time, the pill did not cause any harm to Hall Master Z. This means that Hall Master Miao's antidote pill is effective. Just treat it as spending 2 million to buy a heaven-defying pill recipe. Jun Changshao was startled, then said, that's true. He was so worried about the contribution points that he forgot that Z's poison test was successful, which meant that the pill could be used on the disciples. The Sect of All Times' overall strength was only at the void-piercing realm. If they wanted to reach a higher level, for example, to reach the core transformation realm, not only would they need a large amount of martial arts resources, but they would also need a long time. As long as the poison of the core transformation pill did not endanger the disciples, it could be achieved in a very short time. 2 million contribution points in exchange for the Sect's collective breakthrough to the core transformation realm. The system said, isn't it a loss? Not a loss, not a loss. Jun Changshao immediately thought it through, and a smile appeared on his face. After the meal, Gou Sheng walked out of the cafeteria and saw Li Qingyang still standing in front of the ruins, so he walked forward and picked up the plaque with the words, Unyielding Spirit, and said, the main hall was built in the lower realm. Now that it's in the upper realm, it's obviously a little outdated. Let's rebuild it. The main hall represented the dignity of the sect. If it was destroyed by others, it would definitely not be tolerated. However, if it was destroyed by one of their own, especially by a sect leader, yes, it would be treated as if nothing had happened. However, Gou Sheng's words made sense. The main hall of the sect was built in the lower realm. Although its specifications were not inferior to many first-rate and second-rate sects, after coming to the upper realm, it was not enough compared to ordinary sections. It was necessary to replan and rebuild it. Jun Changshao's abuse of Hall Master Z had caused the collapse, so they could skip the demolition step. Yes. When it was said that they had to rebuild it, Li Qingyang was instantly energized. Thus, he casually ate a few mouthfuls in the cafeteria, then called for Page and his own construction team to tidy up the ruins and design on the spot. Since they were in the upper realm, the main hall had to be more imposing. After an hour of planning, a brand new main hall sketch was presented. The specifications were several times larger than before. This would naturally affect the martial arts arena and other buildings on the main peak. Thus, the reconstruction and renovation was considered a huge project. Jun Changshao was very assured to leave the construction to his second disciple. Thus, he immediately went to the medicine hall and said, Elder Wei, refine as many of these poisonous herbs as you can. Since the first revolution pills would not cause any harm, the next step was to plant them and strive to achieve mass production. This would allow the disciples to collectively enter the core transformation realm. Hall Master Miao. Jun Changshao went to the poison hall again and said, as for the antidote, we have to refine more. Elixirs required herbs, and so did the antidote. Thus, if they were to mass-produce the antidote, the money would naturally be spent very quickly. As long as it could increase the overall strength of the sect, Gou Sheng did not care even if he had to spend all his wealth. Spirit Beast Peak. The Purple King was lying on the bed. Apart from a pair of lifeless eyes, his entire face was covered in mosaic. The main reason was that he had been abused too badly, so it would not cause intense discomfort if he saw it. Z felt very wronged. I had successfully tested the pills for the Patriarch. Why was I abused in the end? Chapter 1553. Plop. Inside the training room, Li Tian half knelt on the ground with a grim expression. At this moment, the poison in his body was like a flood, making him feel as if he could die at any moment. Fortunately, there were many antidote pills beside him. After taking them as quickly as possible, the intense pain gradually weakened. 15 minutes later. Li Tian was lying flat on the ground, sweating profusely. The pain caused by the poison attacking his body made him feel as if he had experienced death many times. Thinking back, his spine was drenched in cold sweat. However, everything was worth it because he had successfully stepped into Transformation Core Realm. Feng Gui Chen and the others refined a total of 10 quick pills. After the Purple King tested that there was no problem, the rest would definitely be given to the disciples. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other core disciples had already broken through, so Jun Changshao gave 9 pills to Li Tian, Sima Zhongda, and the others. As for the other disciples, if they refined more in the future, they would definitely be given more. Not bad. Sensing that Li Tian was lying on the ground like a dead dog, but his aura was already at Transformation Core Realm, a smile appeared on Jun Changshao's face. A human's physique could not be compared to a Kuan. After taking the pill, one would have to endure the corrosion of the poison. Although the process was a bit bitter, as long as one could enter Transformation Core Realm, no one would care. Indeed. In a world where martial arts were respected, if one could increase their cultivation, no matter what kind of torture and pain they experienced, they would choose to endure it, even if it meant losing their lives. Next, Sima Zhongda and the others took the quick pills and successfully entered Transformation Core Realm from Void-Piercing Realm, increasing the overall strength of the sect of all times by a small margin. A few days later, Elder Wei divided a medicinal field for the poisonous herbs needed to refine the quick pills. The growth period was about 2 to 3 months. It's a bit slow, Jun Changshao said, but it's better than letting the disciples cultivate. Not only that, the system said, it can also save a lot of resources. Jun Changshao agreed with this point. Ignoring the realm and forcefully advancing to Transformation Core Realm, the amount of Xian stones and true stones saved in the process would definitely be countless. It's hard to imagine. Jun Changshao took out the pill recipe and said in surprise, a non-human race can actually create such a divine tool pill. Under normal circumstances, human beings were best at alchemy and forging. It was unbelievable that the demonic tribe was better than humans in these 2 areas. The system said, I don't think the demonic tribe was the one who researched the recipe. Oh. Jun Changshao asked curiously, what do you mean? From the huge size of the devil army, it can be seen that this is a combative tribe. Their research on Chimanduanjia and other aspects are definitely not that outstanding. The system said. Not bad. Jun Changshao agreed. Every race had its own characteristics. For example, although the human race was not as strong as the other races in terms of physique and bloodline, their strength lay in their imagination and creativity. As for the demonic tribe, it could be seen from their tall and strong physique that they were born to fight. Asking them to sit down and research alchemy and medical skills was no different from asking rough men to do embroidery. The system said, since the demonic tribe did not exist in the upper realms race system in the beginning, it's very likely that they migrated from other planes or galaxies. As for the pill recipe and forging techniques, they could also be foreign products. That makes sense. It was rare for the 2 of them to have the same opinion and there was no argument. Here comes the problem again. Jun Changshao held his chin and said, how did they migrate here? Could it be that they relied on the space-time worm? No. The system denied. The upper realms universe system is too big. It may not be possible to rely on the space-time worm alone. Maybe there's a tool like the Star Spirit Realm battleship. Oh. Jun Changshao responded. How the demonic tribe came to the upper realm had nothing to do with him. What was the point of thinking so much? It was better to go to the forging hall and see how Master Fan's research was going. Forging Peak. Fan Yezi sat in the stone pavilion and was concentrating on the forging books obtained from the demonic territory. His eyes flashed with surprise and surprise. Hall Master Fan. Jun Changshao walked over and sat next to him. How's the research going? Fan Yezi came back to his senses from the sea of knowledge and exclaimed, Patriarch, these books are too professional. Not only do they record the armor forging technique, there are also many other forging techniques. After ascending to the upper realm, Jun Changshao had found him many forging books, but compared to the ones from the demonic territory, it was a world of difference. Jun Changshao asked with interest, compared to the fighter jets? They're only stronger. Fan Yezi said. The unmanned fighter jets were driven by a mysterious formation, but their bodies were forged by various ores, so he had gone to the formation hall to study them carefully. As a matter of fact, there were many scattered wing remains in the hall. The old man from Taixien was in charge of researching the formation, and Fan Yezi was in charge of studying the structure of the fighter jets. If both of them could make substantial progress, it should not be a problem to perfectly replicate a drone. Then do more research. Jun Changshao said, the disciples of the sect are still waiting for new equipment. The 4-piece set of Bahuang Tianyin had not been popularized yet, because the ores were relatively rare. The armor worn by the demonic tribe soldiers, especially the second-generation version, was of good quality. The ores required were not high, and there were many casting molds. If they were to be mass-produced, it would not be difficult to have a few sets. Patriarch. Fan Yezi said, I'm the only one in the forging hall. Can you send some disciples over? They don't know how to forge. That's not a problem. They can just help. Okay. Jun Changshao said, I'll find some time and send some disciples over. Find some time. Fan Yezi rolled his eyes. He had complained about the lack of manpower in the forging hall many times, but every time, there was no one. He did not know if he would be able to wait until then. Formation hall. Jun Changshao walked in from outside. The old man from Taixien and his research team were still conducting comprehensive research on the unmanned fighter jets. Patriarch. Shengguan Xinyao walked over and said, after the drawer of the cockpit was opened, I found this strange thing inside. Oh. Jun Changshao took out the mechanical device that looked like glasses and said in surprise, is this a device to test combat power? Then, he put it on. Pa! When the button was activated, dense numbers suddenly appeared on the lens. Then, it locked onto Shengguan Xinyao and a series of strange words appeared. That's right. The system said, the host guessed correctly. This is the measuring device. Your disciple's combat power is 36. Jun Changshao was speechless. However, the system said, her defense is 24, agility is 21, and mental strength is 169. Jun Changshao suddenly realized that these values must correspond to the physique, movement, and soul of the martial arts world. It was just a change of name. What about my master? Combat power 267. What about me? This thing can't detect me. How am I supposed to know? Jun Changshao took off the measuring device and threw it into the space ring. Although this thing could directly analyze one's strength with numbers, the martial arts world still relied on one's realm and understanding of the nature of heaven and earth, so it didn't have much reference value. Ha ha ha. At this moment, the old man from Taixien walked out of the mech and laughed, I understand, I understand. Understand what? Jun Changshao asked. The old man from Taixien walked to the table covered with drawings and took out the internal formation diagram he drew, saying, according to my research during this period, I have roughly confirmed that the driving principle of these formations is soul control. Soul control. Jun Changshao said in surprise, is it the same principle as the soul control of the mech I mentioned? No. The old man from Taixien said seriously, more professional than you. What do you mean? According to my preliminary judgment, the core formation of the mech can accept the soul of a martial artist and control all the driving devices. Is there a difference between this and the idea I proposed? The mech comes from the distant astral world. Do you think the martial artist and the soul can maintain contact? No. Even if the martial artist could control the mech by separating the soul, there would be a distance limit. If the distance was too far, the connection would be broken. The astral world and the upper realm are separated by several galaxies. There is only one possibility that the mech can still be controlled. The soul integrated into the core formation is actually equivalent to a new consciousness. The old man from Taixien said. I'll go. Jun Changshao said in surprise, is it that magical? Come. The old man from Taixien walked to the front of the mech and opened a shell, saying, I have cracked the core formation. You can try to integrate a strand of your soul into it. Jun Changshao walked over and found that the internal structure was not only complicated, but also dense formation patterns. Because it was different from the formation system he came into contact with, he was a little dazzled. Integrate it there. The groove in the central area. Jun Changshao closed his eyes and separated a strand of his soul until it filled the groove in the center of the formation. In an instant it was as if he had turned into a pilot sitting in the cockpit. Magical. Go Xing put his hand on the starting lever with a look of surprise. Who? Suddenly, the tail of the mech shot out an energy light. The intact mech instantly broke through a wall of the formation hall and flew out. Li Qingyang, who was planning in front of the ruins of the main hall, raised his head. His spiritual sense caught a big hole in the wall of the formation hall. He immediately clutched his chest and a pained expression appeared on his face. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the sky above the eternal immortal mountain, the unmanned mech flew at an extremely fast speed. Sometimes it flew sideways, sometimes it flew backwards, as if it was performing aerial acrobatics. Interesting, interesting. A smile appeared on Jun Changxiao's face as he stood in the formation hall. At this moment, he was more like an innocent child playing with the remote control plane his parents bought for him. The old man from Taishuan's analysis was right. This kind of unmanned mech from the astral world could be controlled as long as the soul was injected into the formation. Moreover, what surprised Jun Changxiao the most was that the mech flew out of the eternal immortal mountain and flew far enough away. Although it was disconnected from him, it was still flying, as if someone was still controlling it. Whoosh! After a while, the mech flew back to the eternal immortal mountain. The soul was connected to the main body, and Goxing regained control. This is too magical. Jun Changxiao exclaimed. After disconnecting from the mech, the flight path was exactly the same as what he had expected. This meant that the soul that had fused with it had its own consciousness at that stage, and even completely inherited its thoughts. Master. Withdrawing a wisp of his soul, Jun Changxiao said, can this kind of special formation be used on the mech? He was not interested in the unmanned mech, but he was interested in the internal structure of the formation. If it was used on the Diablo, not only would the disciples be able to control it remotely, they would also be able to control it in the true sense of the word. Follow me. The old man from Taixien brought Jun Changxiao to the back of the mountain. There was a mech placed there with dazzling patterns on it. Could it be, just as Jun Changxiao opened his mouth, the old man from Taixien proudly said, that's right, this kind of extremely special soul formation has already been used. Chapter 1554. Boom! Boom! Heavy footsteps came from the gloomy forest. A mecha that was dozens of feet tall pushed open the tree and walked over. Its eyes were shining. Together with the dark color, it looked like a ghost from hell. Whoosh! A human figure flew over from afar and landed on a big tree. Then, it issued some kind of order to the big guy. It quickly rushed into the depths of the forest, then raised its palm and shot out a beam of energy, killing the leopard-type demon beast that was moving at high speed on the spot. Not bad. Zhong Yi nodded with satisfaction. Using Diablo to kill a Void Realm beast. Did it have nothing better to do? No, no. This time, he came to the forest thousands of miles away from the sect to test whether the mecha would listen to his orders when it was operated by soul and disconnected from the user. He was very satisfied with the result. Zhong Yi transmitted his voice to the members of the Drizzle Hall nearby, reporting to the Patriarch, everything is normal. Roger that. Under the continuous transmission of the intelligence network, the news was quickly sent to the Sect of all times. Jun Changshao took a sip of tea and said with a smile, when fighting in the future, you just need to let them merge with the soul. The old man from Taishan said, although it's convenient, if the mecha is seriously damaged, the soul will also be damaged. I'm afraid it will bring irreparable damage to the disciple. It's okay. Jun Changshao said indifferently, as long as the soul-refining sacred celestial art is cultivated to the out-of-body level, the separated soul will not affect the main body even if it is erased. This was the reason why Go Sheng had been working on unmanned mecha. Unfortunately, the mental cultivation method was too profound. Even he himself had not comprehended the out-of-body level yet. Of course. With the doppelganger formed by the Major Thousand Shadows art, even if he had been worrying about the sect and neglected cultivation, he would comprehend it sooner or later. Master. Jun Changshao said, the previous 1,000 mechas and the subsequent ones have to be added with this soul array. Elder Zhen and the others have already started to act, the old man from Taishan said. That's good. Jun Changshao reminded them again and then returned to his residence. He was free now. The medical hall, poison refining hall, smithing hall, and array formation hall started to get busy. After all, they had to refine elixirs, research armor, and set up array formations. This was the sect of all times. Some of the halls might be very idle, or even have no sense of existence. However, when they were put to use, they would definitely be busy to the point of exhaustion. Compared to the Spirit Beast Hall, they were still considered fortunate. Due to Hall Master Z's actions of testing the pill, Elder Nyo and the others were now holding brooms and cleaning the various mountain peaks for a month. These chores were originally done by Du Kong, but since it was replaced by the Spirit Beast Hall, he could only focus on cultivating Dharma. The sect of all times was operating as usual. Jun Changshao also had a rare opportunity to cultivate and comprehend martial arts techniques. Outside, the 10 great immortal sects began a large-scale search of the buried moon pavilion. The entire world was filled with a murderous aura. Although Jun Changshao did not go out, the Drizzle Hall had always been collecting information, so he knew the current situation of the world like the back of his hand. Patriarch. One day, Li Luoqiu walked into the study and reported, I just received news that the Realm Hall's men found the buried moon pavilion branch in Sea King City last night. Both sides had a fierce battle outside the city, and both sides suffered casualties. Heh. Jun Changshao said, to be able to find the branch, the Realm Hall is not useless after all. Li Luoqiu smiled and said, the investigation of the buried moon pavilion this time was initiated by the 10 great celestial sects. They definitely won't dare to slack off, so it's normal for them to find the branch based on the information provided by the Patriarch. Go ahead, go ahead. Jun Changshao put his legs on the table and smiled. I'm looking forward to picking up the scraps. The 10 great celestial sects would definitely not allow the demon ancestor to exist. Both sides would eventually have a winner. What he needed to do was to watch the fire burn across the river and reap the benefits when the time was right. Lingyao Wonderland. Master. The hunchbacked elder frowned and said, the 10 great celestial sects are serious this time. The buried moon pavilion might be destroyed. Empress Ling Yao, who was sitting on the throne, said faintly, the demon ancestor is someone they have to get rid of. Now that he has been identified as a spy, the situation is not optimistic. This Jun Changshao is not simple, the hunchbacked elder said. The hunchbacked elder said, with just a few words in the holy city's meeting, he labeled the fiend ancestor as a spy. Empress Ling Yao said, the demonic tribe does not belong to the upper realm, and now there are foreign warships invading. Perhaps he has guessed correctly. Whether or not the demon ancestor was a spy, she was skeptical, and so were the 10 great celestial sects. But at this moment, they could only believe it. They would rather kill the wrong person than let him go. Actually, Empress Ling Yao said, I am very curious now. What method did Jun Changshao use to blow up the 9 warships that were preparing to escape? Out of the 10 warships that invaded, the upper realm joined forces with various experts to barely destroy one of them. Gu Zhaoxi flew out from the Sect of all times and sacrificed himself to blow it up. This was too exaggerated. Moreover, the Starry Sky Fortress was also blown up. Combining the two, did Jun Changshao already possess some kind of terrifying power that could destroy everything? The 10 great celestial sects had also mentioned this in their discussions, but they did not go to the Sect of all times to ask for clarification. Firstly, the two sides were not on good terms because of the demonic body. Secondly, if they provoked the other side and blew up their own home, it would be troublesome. What was this? That's right, nuclear deterrence. If Go Xing took out a soul bomb and placed it in the sky, shouting at the top of his lungs, who dares to fight me? The final result would be the celestial sects all clasping their fists and saying they did not dare. It should be some kind of special trump card, the hunchbacked old man said. Empress Ling Yao said, regardless of whether it is a trump card or not, the invasion of the foreign warships has undoubtedly helped Jun Changshao. The Jia Hall will definitely not dare to offend him again. Then Master's plan, it doesn't matter. Empress Ling Yao said, with Jun Changshao's personality, he will definitely remember the 10 great celestial sects besieging the Sect of all times. Sooner or later, there will be a day when they will fall out. As a subordinate, the Jia Hall will naturally be affected. In the dark and gloomy palace, the demon ancestor sat cross-legged in the blood pool. Crimson lines covered his entire body, as if he was being nourished by some kind of power. Phew! After a while, he opened his eyes and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. My ancestor! The black-robed old man said respectfully, the investigation has been completed. The 10 great celestial sects suddenly attacked the buried moon pavilion because they think that the demon clan is the accomplice of the invaders. The demon ancestors' eyes gradually turned cold. 100,000 years ago, these sanctimonious forces thought that the demon clan wanted to dominate the upper world, so they joined forces with the other major clans to destroy us. Now that I am resurrected, they have found a new reason. Humph. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. The black-robed old man wanted to say something but stopped. What are you trying to say? My ancestor, the 10 great celestial sects think that the demon clan is a spy from the outside world. It is all because the patriarch of the Sect of all times fanned the flames during the meeting in the holy city. Pfft. The demon ancestor could not hold back the blood in his body and spat it out. The disciples of the Sect of all times had stolen the connate saint demonic body. He had not succeeded in getting someone else to do the dirty work. Instead, he had let the sect become the hero. Now that he had been tricked by that guy, it was hard for him not to be angry. Despicable guy. The demon ancestor wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said angrily, when I recover, I will destroy the Sect of all times with my own hands. Let's go. Inform all members of the buried moon pavilion that we will depart for the hidden spirit island in the West Ocean in 3 days. They were afraid that the 10 great celestial sects would find them. My ancestor. The black-robed old man said, "There is an ancient array on the hidden spirit island. If we get close, that was set up by me in the past." The demon ancestor sneered and said, "I'm afraid the 10 great immortal sects would never have thought that I still have a way to enter the demonic region. As long as we can successfully enter and control the demonic army, the entire upper world will be doomed." He he he. He 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 he. Chapter 1555. Without the connate saint demon body, why was the demon ancestor so confident that he could control the demon army? Because he was the ancestor of the demon clan, the leader of the clan. Even without the demon body, he could still command his subordinates. However, the reality was a little cruel. The demon army in the demon territory had been moved away by Jun Changshao. Even the royal city's treasury and all kinds of forging facilities were gone. Even if they went in, they would only listen to the snowflakes and the north wind. The demon ancestor did not know about this. He gave up the palace where he was in seclusion and took the elite troops of the buried moon pavilion to the West Sea. The 10 immortal sects were closing in, and there was no way to escape. However, it did not mean that he admitted defeat. As long as his injuries recovered and he regained his strength, he would definitely rise again and cause chaos in the upper realm. No matter what caused the demon ancestor's personality to be distorted in the past, he was now a complete villain. Sigh. 2 villains in one world. How could he live well in the future? Some people would ask, who was the other villain? Hurry and see a doctor. I'll pay for it myself. You don't have to pay me back. The West Sea. After traveling for half a month, the demon ancestor arrived at the hidden spirit island, which was described as the most mysterious place. Why was it mysterious? Because the island was located in the West Sea. It disappeared and disappeared from time to time. Sometimes it was in the east, sometimes it was in the west. It was like a wandering ghost. Even if a lucky boat or martial artist came here, they would definitely be lost in the forbidden array and turn into a skeleton. Buzz. On the beach, the demon ancestor waved his hand and the invisible array was immediately removed. Roar. Roar. At the same time, a deafening roar came from the island. Immediately, a group of huge birds and beasts rushed out and then prostrated themselves on the ground as if they were worshipping. As expected. The demon ancestor said with relief, "You have all grown up." The 4 black-robed elders and the members of the buried moon pavilion standing behind changed their expressions. They had only seen these strange demonic beasts in ancient books, because they had long been extinct and no longer existed. The 10 major celestial sects thought that by sealing off the demonic territory, they would be able to get rid of all future troubles. Little did they know that I had a trick up my sleeve. I had placed the baby demonic beasts of my clan on the hidden spirit island in advance. The demon ancestor said proudly. Leaving behind a few resurrection plans and leaving powerful demonic beasts on the island, he might as well call this master Devil Hands. Don't say it. After 100,000 years of natural development, the demonic beasts on Hidden Spirit Island had grown to a very large scale. For example, there were several hundred demonic beasts similar to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and their strength was comparable to at least 8 or 9 transformations. There were also over 1,000 flying demonic beasts similar to the ostrich, and their strength was at least 5 or 6 transformations. This was still a large number of beasts. Some of the beasts were fewer in number, but their strength was getting stronger. Some of them were even comparable to the truth-seeking realm. With such a lineup and no concealment array at the start, ordinary cultivators would definitely die if they entered. Let's go. Mo Jisho led his subordinates through the dense forest and stopped at an area with higher terrain. Then, he waved his hand lightly. When the formation in front of them was removed, a small city instantly appeared in their field of vision. Above the city gate were the words Spirit Vanishing City. From today onwards. This is where you will live. Yes. Thousands of buried Moon Pavilion members walked into the spotless city. Looking at the various defensive measures set up on the city walls, they were all amazed by the foresight of their ancestor 100,000 years ago to raise demonic beasts on the island and build a city in advance. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao sat in the study, one hand holding the left side of his face. His eyes glanced at the map on the table, and he muttered to himself, "Where will the demon ancestor hide?" Although he wanted to be a spectator, if the 10 major immortal sects could not find that guy and let him recover his cultivation in a short time, he and his sect would definitely be in trouble. Without a doubt. The system said, "After all, your disciple stole his demonic body." So. Jun Changshao stood up, rubbed his temples, and said, "I can't just rely on the immortal sect to deal with the devil ancestor. I have to personally go and find him. I have to take advantage of the fact that my cultivation hasn't recovered to prevent future troubles. The 10 major immortal sects have better intelligence than the Drizzle Hall. If they can't find him, how will the host find him?" The system began to pour cold water on him. Jun Changshao scanned the map back and forth, and said, "Since the demon ancestor left so many demonic troops in the demonic region, he will definitely find a way to enter. And then? The sealed entrance to the demonic region is in the West Sea. Perhaps he is hiding in some corner. The West Sea of the Upper Realm is vast and boundless. A few falling star continents can't compare to it. The host has no clue to find his hiding place. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack," the system said. Originally, Jun Changshao had only made a casual guess and had no intention of going to the West Sea to look for it. However, when he heard its firm tone, he immediately made a decision and said, "Since you're going, I have no reason not to go." Whoosh! That day, Gosheng boarded the ancient warship and left the sect of all times, embarking on the journey to the West Sea. It could be said that he left as soon as he said he would, rushing through the 9 states. This time, he didn't have much hope in going to the West Sea. His real goal was to cultivate to the peak of the revolving core realm. There was no point in cultivating, so he planned to go out and try his luck. Perhaps he might accidentally find dozens of super-large immortal stone veins. Haha. The system laughed. In other aspects, it might suspect that he was a jinx. Finding dozens of super-large immortal stone veins. Absolutely impossible. If he really found one, he would do a handstand. Come on. Mercilessly slap his face. Hidden Spirit Island. Several subordinates of the demon ancestor appeared from the formation boundary, and then flew toward the continent on a flying treasure. The headquarters of the buried Moon Pavilion would be placed here in the future. Many members would arrive later, so they had to prepare a large amount of supplies and daily necessities. There was an ancient formation on the island, and it didn't change its position. Therefore, it would be difficult for the 10 major immortal sects to find it in the sea. Wait. Wasn't this similar to the Demon Emperor's Gate? It hid in a forbidden area and relied on a special formation to move around crazily. In the end, it was still found by Jun Changshao, who was good at fighting. Jun Changshao had taken advantage of it several times. It was similar, but in terms of strength, the demon ancestor was much stronger than the Demon Emperor's Gate sect master. Moreover, he had so many tricks up his sleeve 100,000 years ago. How could he be found so easily? Huff. The demon ancestor, who was sitting cross-legged in the main hall, opened his eyes and said helplessly, "Although my body is becoming more and more compatible with it, my soul has suffered a setback. I'm stuck at the peak of the revolving core realm, and it's difficult for me to enter the truth-seeking realm." Forget it, forget it. It's not something urgent. He got up and walked out of the main hall. He walked along the tree-lined path to the back of the mountain. Then, he activated a mechanism, and an entrance slowly opened in the stone wall. There was a small palace inside. After the demon ancestor entered, the torches in all directions suddenly lit up. Under the illumination of the light, he could clearly see the outline of a huge pattern on the stone slab in the center. With my current cultivation, I should be able to activate the array to enter the demonic region. This array pattern was set up by him 100,000 years ago. Its purpose was to teleport to the demonic region. Whether it could break the seal set up by the 10 immortal sects was still uncertain. Swish! The demon ancestor walked into the center of the array and sat down cross-legged. Buzz! Buzz! Demonic chi spread out, and the ancient patterns that had existed for a long time were suddenly activated. They flashed with red light and gradually formed layers of light screens. It can connect to the demonic region. Swish! Swish! The demon ancestor quickly formed a hand seal and chanted a strange incantation. He placed 2 fingers in front of his temple and shouted, "I am the only one in the world. Turn the starry sky." Swish! A stream of light flashed, and his figure gradually blurred. It worked. This ancient array that was set up 100,000 years ago was not suppressed by the seal. It could be teleported to the demonic region. Kakik! My soldiers, have you heard the call of this ancestor? The voice became weaker and weaker as the demon ancestor was teleported away. The West Sea was a very general name. The coastal continents were included in it, not just the boundless ocean. Jun Changshao rushed over on the ancient warship. The first stop was Sea King City, because a very important branch of the Buried Moon Pavilion was here. They had just fought with the Jia Hall not long ago. Look, it's the ancient warship. The patriarch of the sect of all times. Go Sheng flew openly in mid-air on the official road of Sea King City, and immediately alerted the passers-by on the road. How could they have heard of him in such a remote place? Jun Changshao was a little smug. He did not go into the city. Instead, he rushed to the open space where the Buried Moon Pavilion and the Jia Hall fought. There were huge pits nearby, and the rocks and trees had collapsed. He could infer that the battle must have been very fierce. At this moment, Jun Changxiao's spiritual thoughts captured an acquaintance in the battle area. He was surprised. Why is he here? Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan, who was carrying the sarcophagus, looked up and smiled. We meet again. Brother Liu, why have you come to Sea King City? Jun Changxiao asked. Sigh. Ryu Sinan shook his head. I was going to your sect, but I got lost and ended up in the West Sea. Jun Changxiao almost fell off the ship. Brother, the sect of all times is in the southeast region, and the West Sea is in the west. You got lost too much. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said, You're here to investigate the Buried Moon Pavilion? That's right. Jun Changxiao jumped down from the warship and put away his space ring. He then said with a solemn expression, The Zhangyue Pavilion is related to the demon ancestor, so I came here to investigate it. I hope I can do something for the upper world. Although this demon exterminator was a member of the Jia Hall, he felt that he was a good person after meeting him in Moyuan City. It would be best if they could build a friendship. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan cupped his fists and said, Righteous. Jun Changxiao said, The upper realm is so big. It's fate that we met here. Why don't we go to a restaurant in Sea King City and have a drink or two? That would be great. Ryu Sinan did not decline. After all, he was exhausted after coming to the West Sea. A drink or two would relieve his tiredness. Please. Please. Just as the two of them entered Sea King City, the demon lord, who entered Moang territory with the help of a formation, entered Moang City. He looked calm on the surface, but he was actually very excited. 100,000 years ago, he scattered the million-strong demon army in various cities and sealed them. There were as many as 300,000 soldiers in the main city, including the 8 most capable generals. Gather the army. What is there to be afraid of? Along the way, the demon lord's eyes shone with excitement. Soon, he arrived at the military camp that he had built himself. He looked at the drill ground and the stage with a smile, only to see an empty space. Where are my soldiers? Where are my 8 generals? The demon lord stood there in a daze, the smile on his face completely frozen. The camera panned to the sky and gave him a close-up shot of nothing around him. Sad music started to play, snowflakes fluttered, and the north wind blew. The world was vast. A plum blossom stood proudly in the snow, only for the fragrance of his lover. Puff puff puff. Puff puff puff. Blood splattered out like fireworks in full bloom. Fourth update, 3,200 plus words. I can't take it anymore. My brain is in a daze. If I force myself to write, I might not even know what I'm writing. The total word count for this month is fixed at 199459. Damn it, more than 500 words. It's stopping me from reaching 200,000. Chapter 1556. In the largest restaurant in Sea King City, Jun Changshao sat in a high-class room and started chatting with Ryu Sinan. Those who did not know would think that they were old friends. Not long after, plates of delicacies were served. Since it was a coastal city, the cuisine was mainly seafood. Ryu Sinan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He praised, I've heard that the seafood feast in Sea King City is the best in the upper realm. Just the smell of the aroma is enough to prove it. Brother Lu, are you a gourmet? Jun Changshao asked. I wouldn't dare to call myself a gourmet, Ryu Sinan said humbly, it's just that I'm usually very gluttonous and like to taste the world's delicacies. Masters would not starve to death even if they did not eat, but who would not want to eat delicious food? Please. Please. The two of them exchanged pleasantries and began to taste the seafood feast. I won't describe the process of eating, I'm afraid that the instant noodles in your bowl will suddenly not taste good. Not bad. Not bad. Ryu Sinan praised as he ate. Sigh. Jun Changshao put down his chopsticks and picked up a tissue to wipe his mouth. Disappointment appeared on his face. It's coming. The system said, the drama queen is about to perform. Ryu Sinan was puzzled. Jun Patriarch, why aren't you eating? Don't you like seafood? Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed first, then stood up and pointed at the table full of seafood. He said indignantly, such good food, but it's so disgusting. It's such a waste. Ryu Sinan was dumbfounded. The seafood feast here was very good, how could it be disgusting? Even if it was not to his taste, there was no need to get angry. Had this guy's pickiness about food reached a terrifying level? Brother Lu. Jun Changshao said, you may think that I'm picky, but in fact, the chef in this restaurant doesn't know how to cook at all. The food he makes is disgusting and soulless. Ryu Sinan's mouth twitched slightly. He only knew whether food was delicious or not, but he had never heard of soulful food. I'm not eating anymore. Jun Changshao flung his chopsticks and sat down angrily. Ryu Sinan lowered his voice and said, Jun Patriarch, a seafood feast costs at least 10,000 profound stones. It would be a waste not to eat it. Brother Lu, please rest assured. Jun Changshao said, this meal is on me. If it's wasted, then so be it. Hearing the word treat, Ryu Sinan felt relieved. He picked up his chopsticks and said with a smile, then I'll eat. Pa. Jun Changshao took out a bowl of fried rice from his interspatial ring and said, Brother Lu, eat the seafood. I'll eat the food I prepared. This is. Ryu Sinan was surprised. Jun Changshao said, fried rice made by the Sect's chef. Ryu Sinan felt a little dizzy. Instead of eating the expensive seafood feast, he chose to eat fried rice that was similar to dry food. Was this guy sick? Brother Lu. Jun Changshao asked, "Do you want one?" "No, no." Ryu Sinan hurriedly said seriously, "I think I should eat the seafood feast first. It would be a waste if I can't finish it." On one side was lobster, king crab and other precious delicacies, and on the other was cold fried rice. As long as one's brain wasn't kicked by a donkey, anyone would know what to eat. All right then. Jun Changshao picked up his chopsticks and ate the fried rice, smacking his lips. Ryu Sinan completely let go of his appetite and ate the food on the table in big mouthfuls. But when he glanced over and saw the other eating more happily than him, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "Can this thing compare to the seafood feast?" Ah! After a while, Jun Changshao leaned against the back of the chair, scooped off the rice and stuffed it into his mouth. He closed his eyes and savored it carefully, saying, "This is a real delicacy. It has absolute soul." The corner of Ryu Sinan's mouth twitched. A guy who had eaten fried rice for God knows how many nights could eat it to the level of soul. There must be something wrong with his brain. "Brother Lu, come, drink a mouthful. Come." After drinking a cup of wine, Jun Changshao continued to eat. His mouth made a lot of noise, and he looked very relaxed. Ryu Sinan was immediately affected. He felt that the seafood on the table was no longer delicious. "Brother Lu, why aren't you eating?" Ryu Sinan couldn't take it anymore and asked weakly, "Jun Patriarch, is this fried rice really that good?" "Of course." Jun Changshao said, "No beautiful words can describe it." Seeing how exaggerated he was, Ryu Sinan was even more curious. He smiled and said, "Can you give me a bowl?" Sigh. The system said helplessly, "I still fell for it." "All right." Jun Changshao took out a bowl of fried rice from his space ring and pushed it over. Ryu Sinan lowered his head and carefully examined the fried rice. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Because just from the color, it was obvious that it had been cooked for a long time. What was the standard of a delicacy? It looked, smelled, and tasted good. Although the fried rice was still golden in color because it had been cooked overnight, it was obviously much dimmer. As for the taste, Ryu Sinan leaned over and sniffed. He couldn't smell anything at all. He immediately concluded that this bowl of fried noodles was at most used to fill the stomach. It wasn't a delicacy at all. Why was Jun Patriarch eating so happily? If he guessed correctly, this person was seriously lacking in taste. "Brother Lu," Jun Changshao said, "eat it while it's hot. This fried rice was obviously cold. Eat it while it's hot, my ass." After all, Ryu Sinan was a cultured person. Although he was a little regretful, he still picked up the spoon. That's right. When eating fried rice, the spoon had more soul than chopsticks. From this small detail, it could be seen that Ryu Sinan was indeed a gourmet. Thinking about how Jun Changshao picked up the bowl and used the chopsticks to shove the fried rice into his mouth, no wonder, he ate it with relish. It made people envious. A small spoonful, put it in his mouth. Even if he had already determined that the fried rice was only used to fill the stomach, Ryu Sinan still tasted it carefully like a gentleman. Because he understood the principle that every grain on the plate was hard work. Chewing, chewing. He chewed the bridge of his grandmother, chewed the bridge of his youth. In a simple courtyard, a young girl wearing an apron stood at the kitchen door and shouted, "Brother Nan, the food is ready." "Wait a minute. Humph, you only know how to cultivate." After a while, the girl shouted again, "Brother Nan, the food is cold." "Wait a minute." Only after being urged several times did the young man come out. He picked up the chopsticks and ate a few mouthfuls, regardless of whether the food was cold or hot, and continued to cultivate. This kind of life lasted for a long time. Until one rainy night, when the cooking girl was lying in his arms, she still didn't forget to smile and say, after I leave, remember, to eat on time, swish." Ryu Sinan suddenly came back from the past. He looked down at the bowl of cold fried rice. Manly tears flowed down his cheeks because the cold fried rice reminded him of his true love, and he remembered that he didn't cherish her. The thing that made him regret the most in his life was that he was too addicted to martial arts and neglected the woman who cared for him. It wasn't until she left that he suddenly realized that it was impossible to eat the food she cooked. Back to the topic. How did the fried rice taste? It was no longer important, because whether it was delicious or not, it reminded Ryu Sinan of the past. It reminded him of the taste when he was busy with cultivation and hurried to eat. This man. Looking at the stone coffin next to him, Jun Changshao secretly said, "There must be a sad story." Nonsense. The system ridiculed, "If there is no story, how can I give you a chance to poach him?" Chapter 1557. Ryu Sinan finished the fried rice. What he ate was not the taste, but the memories. "Brother Lu," Jun Changshao said, "can you tell me your story?" Since the food was to his liking, he should take advantage of the situation and find a flaw to attack. "I don't have a story." Lu Wancher put down the spoon gently and said, "Thank you, Jun Patriarch, for your hospitality." Swoosh. He carried the sarcophagus and left. "No way." He left just like that. Jun Changshao shook his head and went downstairs to pay the bill. When he walked out of the restaurant, Ryu Sinan had already walked to the end of the street. His back was gradually drowned in the crowd. "Ha!" The system rejoiced in his misfortune and said, "What a waste of time." Jun Changshao said, "This is a very gentlemanly man. I believe he will remember this meal." "TSK," the system snorted. Jun Changshao left Sea King City. Next, he would wander around the West Sea aimlessly to see if he could find any clues. On the reef by the sea, Ryu Sinan sat on the ground. He placed the sarcophagus in front of him and looked at the endless sea. He was still thinking about the feelings and worries brought to him by the fried rice. Moong region. The song of a cut plum was still lingering on the demon ancestor's head. At this moment, he was standing in the empty equipment workshop. He covered his chest with one hand and leaned against the wall with the other. Drops of blood splattered down and gathered into a lake. Why is this? This demon ancestor was very strong, but he was overly cautious. He left behind a lot of backup plans before he died so that he could make a comeback in the future. But the reality was cruel. The soldiers and generals in the Moong region, and even all the equipment were gone. Not even a strand of hair was left. A blow. A heavy blow. Fortunately, the reconstructed body was very strong. If it was an ordinary person, they would have vomited blood and died. Who is it? The demon ancestor clenched his fists. His face was ferocious. His veins were bulging as he roared, "Who is it?" If anger could be measured by a number, it would be off the charts now. An hour later, he had visited all the other cities and made sure that the devil army was nowhere to be found. Only then did he return to the main city with all his heart set on it. Although his heart was in pain, life had to go on. How could the lord of the Moong clan be defeated by a setback? Although the demon ancestor's current strength was lacking, he still had the heart of a top elite. Not only could he withstand the storm, but he could also withstand the storm. No Moong army. It doesn't matter. No equipment. It doesn't matter. As long as he recovered his cultivation, he could make a comeback. The 10 Celestials, all the major clans, and the sect of all times that stole my Moong's body. The demon ancestor stepped into the array pattern that led back to the hidden spirit island. His eyes flashed with anger as he said, "Sooner or later, you will understand what a real hell is. I am the only one in the world, and I shall turn the stars." Swish, the light flashed, and Demon Alpha was still standing where she was. She had not been teleported away. In the end, she lost control of her emotions and screamed, what the fuck is going on? A series of mental attacks were simply too fatal. West Ocean. A few members of the Buried Moon Pavilion who were in charge of purchasing landed on the beach of Hidden Spirit Island under the guidance of a special device. Then, they vigilantly released their spiritual senses to observe the surroundings. After making sure that no one was following them, they entered the invisible array. About 15 minutes later, the space above the ocean was slightly distorted, and the ancient warship slowly appeared. Jun Changshao, who was sitting on the bow, crossed his legs and said, "These people are sneaking around. It's a little suspicious. Damn." He actually followed them. Without any foreshadowing, he directly found the demon ancestors' hiding place. What a coincidence. Jun Changshao was wandering aimlessly in the ocean. He saw a few martial artists flying at high speed on the ocean, so he followed them on a whim. At this time, he did not know that the people he was following were members of the Buried Moon Pavilion. He also did not know that the demon ancestor was hiding on the island ahead. Swoosh! He kept the ancient warship and flew over alone. However, what shocked Jun Changshao was that when he was about to reach the beach, he saw the ocean in front of him. The entire island disappeared. Is it a mirage? Impossible. Those martial artists clearly went in just now. It can't be fake. Gou Xing hovered in midair, holding his chin as he began to think. Could it be that there's an array that's automatically shielding the island? The system guessed. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "There was indeed the aura of an array just now, but it's gone now. The entire island seems to have evaporated." He waited for a while. After making sure that it no longer existed, he summoned the ancient warship and searched the nearby waters. An island had suddenly disappeared. This aroused Jun Changshao's interest. After searching for about 2 days, Gou Xing finally found the island in another part of the ocean. From its original position, it was at least a few thousand miles away. If not for the fact that it was very close and could not be seen with the naked eye, spiritual senses would not have been able to detect it. Very strange. Jun Changshao thought to himself, there might be treasures inside. Swoosh! When he got close again, the entire island had mysteriously disappeared again. I don't believe that I won't be able to find you. Jun Changshao's temper flared. He piloted the ancient warship and continued searching in the West Sea. In the end, he found it 8 times in half a month. Every time he was about to reach the shore, it would disappear. It was as if it did not want strangers to approach it. Gou Xing was not angry. He took out the map of the West Sea and marked his current position. As for the other locations he had discovered before, he also marked them. As expected. It's another 2,000 miles away. In this half a month, Jun Changshao found that the island would always disappear and reappear at a fixed distance. Moreover, from the map, it appeared to be a circle. It seemed to contain the law of strategists. The first time was here. The second time was here, clock. Turn clockwise. In order to verify his guess, Jun Changshao piloted the ancient warship and traveled 2,000 miles from the last location. The location was exactly at 11 o'clock on the map. Just as expected. After 1 day and 1 night, the space in the sea below was distorted. It was as if the island was shrouded in some kind of energy. Jun Changshao did not rush over immediately. Instead, he went to the first location marked on the map. 2 days later, the island appeared again. Only then did he confirm, it's indeed at a fixed location. It's moving clockwise. So what if you found the pattern? The system said, as long as the host gets close, the island will disappear. This must be related to the array inside. I can set up another array to intercept it, Jun Changshao said. Xiao. Jun Changshao flew to the 1 o'clock position and began to set up the array. Although he was not as skilled as the Taishan elder, he could at least show off his skills. Moreover, the main point this time was not to destroy the island but to intercept it. Even a second was enough. Huff, huff. A few days later, the island automatically rotated to a fixed location. Because of the array on the surface of the sea, there was a violent collision. Then, with a "shio" sound, it disappeared for exactly 1 second. Although the hidden spirit island was out of danger, the 1-second delay gave Jun Changshao an opportunity to land on the beach. He's here. Go Sheng is here. Demonic region. The demon ancestor sat cross-legged outside the array and breathed. Previously, the teleportation failed because he vomited too much blood. His body was a little weak, so he needed to recuperate before returning to the hidden spirit island. Chapter 1558. The hidden spirit island was still changing rhythmically, but no matter if it turned clockwise or counterclockwise, it couldn't shake off Jun Changshao. This guy had already entered and was standing on the beach, thinking about how to break the array in front of him. The members of the Buried Moon Pavilion had special tokens that allowed them to enter and exit at will. If he wanted to enter, he would have to break it with violence or wisdom. Let's use wisdom. Jun Changshao was worried that if he made too much noise outside, it would alarm the martial artists who had entered before him. Whoosh! His soul scattered and merged into the array. Damn! Seeing the dense structure of lines inside, Jun Changshao collapsed on the spot. This is too advanced and complicated. Regret. He didn't bring the Taishan Elder. It was obviously unrealistic to return to the sect to pick him up at this time, so he could only sit down and analyze step by step. Jun Changshao was mainly a little lazy and adhered to the sect's principle of not keeping idle people. So, as long as it was related to arrays, he would leave it to the array hall. In fact, his understanding of arrays was very good. Of course, it was also because he often used cheats that covered up his own advantages. There was no absolutely perfect array in this world. As long as one observed carefully, they would always find loopholes and flaws. Even if it was just a little bit, it would cause a fatal chain reaction. Jun Changshao was like a meditating monk sitting on the beach under the scorching sun, quietly analyzing and figuring out. Even if sand fell on his hair, his shoulders would not move. A serious woman was the most beautiful. Go Sheng was the most handsome when he was serious. 5 days later. A cool breeze blew, blowing away his black hair. When Jun Changshao started to study arrays to the extreme, it triggered the root of his illness, baldness. Whoosh! After a while, he stood up. The sand on his head and shoulders fell down. The sun shone on his shadow, making him look so majestic. Enough, enough, enough. Suddenly, Jun Changshao waved his hand, twisted his waist, and sang, ah, ah, ah. Whoosh! The invisible defensive barrier suddenly dissipated. It was undeniable that Go Sheng's singing was amazing. However, the array stopped operating not because of the disturbance of the out-of-tune music, but because it was completely controlled. Treasure. Jun Changzhao's lips curled into a smile. I'm coming. A small island that was covered with complicated formations and constantly changed its position was enough to show that there was something good hidden there that it didn't want others to know about. Perhaps, there were a few dozen immortal stone veins waiting for him to excavate. Roar! While he was thinking, an extremely loud roar echoed in his ears. Jun Changxiao's head was shaken, and the sand behind him was crazily swept away. A gigantic creature that looked like a Tyrannosaurus Rex was standing in front of him at some point in time. Its stinky mouth was only half a zhang away from him. There were many demonic beasts on the hidden spirit island. When the array stopped, they would appear immediately. Roar, so noisy. Boom! The gigantic Tyrannosaurus Rex flew into the air and crashed into the forest in the distance like a small mountain. Its mouth and eyes were slanted, and white foam was spewing out of its mouth as it fainted. Aya! Jun Changshao rubbed his shiny and smooth head with dead fish eyes and said in a daze, I was a little heavy-handed. The system roared, why did the style suddenly change to a punch? Roar! Roar! At this moment, an angry roar came from the forest in front. Boom! 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 One by one, the Tyrannosaurus rex raised their gigantic bodies and walked out with trembling steps. They were at least 200 to 300 zhang tall, and there were 7 to 8 of them. Soon, they were like mountains in front of the beach, looking down at Jun Changshao. Kid! How dare you hurt my kind? Jun Changshao looked up at these big guys. His eyes shone, and a U-shaped smile gradually appeared on his face. These demonic beasts that looked very similar to the Tyrannosaurus rex were very strong. They should not be weaker than a human transformation stage 7 or 8. The crystal cores in their bodies must be very valuable. The system said, there is no such demonic beast in the illustrated handbook of demonic beasts in the upper realm. They should be a rare species that is extinct. Rare species? Jun Changxiao's eyes were burning. The crystal cores must be even more valuable. The system was speechless. This guy only saw the value of the crystal cores. Did he not see the value of the rare quality? Or was it because of their ugly appearance that he had no intention of subduing them? Yes. The Tyrannosaurus rex was too ugly. Trespassing on Hidden Spirit Island will only result in death. Ho-ho. The 8 Tyrannosaurus rex angrily raised their feet and mercilessly trampled on Jun Changshao. As expected of a rare species from 100,000 years ago. The seemingly ordinary attack actually contained an extremely strong true spirit force. Demonic beasts did not cultivate martial arts, but when they reached a certain level, they could also control the attributes of heaven and earth. So in terms of body and strength, they were even stronger than human martial artists of the same level. Not to mention, to be able to be sent to the island by the demon ancestor in advance, they were definitely not ordinary. You want me to die? Jun Changxiao's dead fish eyes were suddenly replaced by a serious expression. His style was eyes bright like stars, nose like hanging gallbladder, face like jade. Xiao! Xiao! Before the 8 feet could press down, the cold blade light resisted the true spirit force and tore it from below. Boom! Boom! For a moment, the heads of the Tyrannosaurus rex flew out and scattered on the ground. Its huge body slowly fell down like a collapsed mountain. Swoosh! Jun Changshao held the green dragon crescent blade in front of him and said calmly, "You're not qualified." His expression was cold and domineering. Roar! Roar! At this moment, angry roars came from the forest. More Tyrannosaurus rex rushed over with earth-shattering footsteps. Their eyes were burning with rage. As a rare species under special protection in the upper realm, how could they tolerate someone killing their own kind so wantonly? Poochie! Poochie! In the distant mountains, flying demonic beasts that looked like ostriches also rushed out. Jun Changshao spread his spiritual thoughts and said in surprise, "Why are there so many strange demonic beasts on this island?" "They're more than strange." The system said seriously, "They're all extremely rare species." Understood. Jun Changshao raised the green dragon crescent blade and said with a smile, "The biggest treasure on this island should be them." Xiao! Xiao! Just as they were about to start killing to obtain the crystal cores, black-robed and masked martial artists flew out from the city at the end of the forest. They did not know that there were people outside the formation because the formation system was controlled by the demon ancestor. However, when the formation was broken and the Tyrannosaurus rex roared, they naturally realized that something was wrong. This is, seeing the crescent moon pattern on their chests, Jun Changshao said in surprise, "Buried moon pavilion?" However, his smile froze in the next second. This was because there were not just a few dozen black-robed and masked men flying over. There were thousands of them. In addition, rare demonic beasts from all around the forest were rushing over. He was in a very bad situation. Pavilion Master. A member of the Buried Moon Pavilion saw the person standing on the beach and said in shock, "It's the patriarch of the sect of all times." The black-robed elder who rushed over frowned and said, "How did he find this place?" This person colluded with the 10 major celestial sects and even framed the demonic tribe as a spy. Since he dares to come to Hidden Spirit Island, don't let him leave alive. Huff huff. Huff huff huff. In an instant, nearly 3,000 members of the Buried Moon Pavilion sped up. Demonic chi erupted from their bodies, and their eyes flashed with intense killing intent. Roar! Roar! At the same time, dozens of rare demonic beasts comparable to the truth-seeking realm also rushed out. Just their roars alone seemed to have the possibility of shaking the space. What are you waiting for? Run! The system roared. If there were only 1 or 2 truth-seeking realm cultivators, it believed that the host could barely deal with them with his peak revolving core realm strength. However, there were so many of them. If he was surrounded, he would definitely be beaten to death. Run! Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "That's the behavior of a coward." Swoosh! He put the green dragon crescent blade into his spatial ring and held the pocket-sized blade between 2 fingers. He shouted, "A man should fight fair and square." Chapter 1559. There were so many members of the Buried Moon Pavilion and so many rare beasts. Jun Changshao didn't escape because, it was too late. If he explained to them that he was just passing by, they would definitely not believe him, so he could only fight. Some people might say, "If this guy didn't run, there must be a mission." Sorry, there is no mission. The reason why he chose to fight head-on was because he didn't have the ability to fight against the 10 immortal sects when they came to make trouble. He was very depressed. In short, "I can't beat them, but I can't beat you. Come on. Whoever is afraid is a coward." In that moment, facing thousands of martial artists and thousands of monster beasts, Jun Changshao stood tall and straight, looking like a true man who could support the heavens. Humph! The members of the Buried Moon Pavilion who rushed over sneered when they saw that guy take out a knife. Who was he trying to scare with a toy knife? Jun Changshao. The leading black-robed old man shouted, "There is a way to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There is no way you can leave this place alive today. Hell." Jun Changshao bent down, put on the posture of drawing the knife, and said coldly, "As you wish." There were so many members of the Buried Moon Pavilion on the island. It must be the headquarters. Since he had found it by accident, he had to settle the matter of using special means to control Yao Menjing today. Whoosh! His aura erupted, and killing intent filled the air. Jun Changshao hadn't used the hard blade since it was upgraded to the 4th generation. He didn't mind using thousands of members of the Buried Moon Pavilion. What's more, these people didn't look good. Killing them shouldn't be called cruel. Swish! Swish! In an instant, several powerhouses of the truth-seeking realm took the lead to attack. Although the aura they emitted was not at the peak level, it still had a huge oppressive force. Buzz buzz buzz. The space began to tremble under the disturbance of the power. Jun Changshao was a little panicked. If the reader was right, the 4th generation of the hard blade couldn't compete with the truth-seeking realm. He was afraid that, he would be fine. He still had the escape talisman given by the big gift pack. If the situation went wrong, he could escape immediately. He had thought of a way out before the fight even started. Demonic Finger. Spiritual Light Flash. Great Demonic Formless Technique. Whoosh! Hoo hoo! Several Buried Moon Pavilion experts hadn't even arrived yet, but all kinds of long-range demonic martial arts techniques were already being used. For a moment, the screen was filled with special effects, tearing apart space and distorting it. Roar! Roar! All kinds of powerful demonic beasts that were extinct in the upper realm also came over. Jun Changshao was completely sealed off by the three forces of the sea, land, and air. If he could not pull out his saber, he would be surrounded and beaten to death. Where there's life, there's hope. The system stopped him. Let's run. Thank you for your kind words. Jun Changshao took a step forward, and at the moment when all kinds of gorgeous martial arts were about to press down on him, he relied on the special ability of roaring and shouted, Bankai. Clang under the background music and the sound of knives being unsheathed, the beach suddenly erupted with powerful energy. Billowing dust was stirred up, forming a tornado that soared into the sky. The truth-seeking experts all stopped, their eyes filled with disbelief. From their perspective, the powerful energies formed by the martial arts techniques were all stagnant at the edge of the sandstorm, as if they were grabbed by an invisible hand and could not move at all. What was going on? The members of the Buried Moon Pavilion who came later were all dumbfounded. So much powerful energy was suddenly frozen in midair. It was simply too inconceivable. Roar! Roar! The demonic beasts and birds that rushed out from the sky and the forest let out low growls, their eyes gradually filled with fear. In terms of danger perception, beasts were stronger than humans. Boom! Suddenly, the sound of a heavy landing came from inside the rotating tornado. The billowing dust suddenly dispersed, and a huge scythe appeared in sight first. The head of the scythe was very long, and the blade shone with a sharp luster. Due to its shape, it looked like a crescent moon. At the top of the slender handle, two blood-red ribbons danced in the wind. Gulp! The members of the Buried Moon Pavilion gulped, but they could not stop the chill from rising. The shape of the scythe was not scary. What was scary was that the entire blade exuded an extremely strong aura of death. Smack! Jun Changshao grabbed the handle of his scythe with one hand and gently raised his head. It was unknown when he had put on a black robe, but a grave and stern face gradually appeared. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, forming an evil and charming smile. Wearing a black robe and holding a scythe, he looked like the god of death from hell. Who? Jun Changshao put the scythe on his shoulder and covered his face with his left hand, laughing creepily. Ha ha ha. Are you ready to go to hell? Bam! 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 Unstoppable saber, fourth form, the two lines of bold and powerful words instantly occupied the entire screen and were accompanied by a vibration effect. The few experts of the truth-seeking stage retreated in shock. When the scythe on Jun Changshao's back seemed to have turned into the god of death, they finally felt the crisis of death. All kinds of special demonic beasts were the first to have a premonition. At this moment, they all turned around and ran back, the fear in their eyes growing more and more intense. This was not a human being. This was a monster. This was a devil. Shwa! Jun Changshao waved his hand, and the huge scythe cut through the void. The extremely cold saber aura flew into the depths of the forest and swept from one side. The space on the path was ruthlessly cut apart, showing a deep and long crack. Thump! 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 The demonic beasts fleeing in this direction all stopped and looked at the space crack in front of them that blocked their passage. They were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out. Shwa! Shwa! Jun Changshao swung his scythe and slashed at the void 3 more times. Streams of light instantly split the space in 3 directions, joining together with the previous spatial cracks to form a quadrangular area, trapping the members of the Buried Moon Pavilion and the demonic beasts inside. Profound meaning. Space cage. Ryu Sinan, who was sitting on the shore and reminiscing about a bowl of fried rice for more than half a month, raised his head and looked at the boundless ocean. He said in surprise, "The energy fluctuation just now seems to be the power of space." He was very far away from Jun Changshao, but he could feel the space vibration because of the space spirit in him. "Let's go take a look." Ryu Sinan carried the sarcophagus on his back and flew toward the deep sea. The space energy fluctuation was always there, guiding him accurately. He should not get lost. Hidden Spirit Island. Looking down from a high altitude, one could clearly see the square space crack. The scene was very shocking. The cage was indeed comparable to hell because the aura of death was too strong. All kinds of demonic beasts that stopped at the edge of the space crack in the forest trembled violently. Even the birds were so scared that they fell to the ground. The members of the Buried Moon Pavilion were so scared that their faces turned green. With a wave of his hand, the space was cut. Was the scythe in that guy's hand a divine artifact? Ta! Jun Changshao walked over and stopped in front of the nearest truth-seeking realm expert. He said in a cold voice, "Where is the demonic ancestor?" The closer the giant scythe was, the stronger the aura of death that seemed to come from hell became. The pressure made his hands and legs tremble, and his scalp feel like it was about to explode. No. No. No comment. Although this truth-seeking realm expert was suppressed, his mind was still firm. He would not betray his faith because of fear. "Then you can die now." Jun Changshao raised the scythe, and the blade in the shape of a crescent moon was pressed against his neck. He announced the death sentence in a cold voice. Poochie, the head flew out, and blood splattered. When the body fell, Jun Changshao came in front of another Buried Moon Pavilion expert and said the same thing, "Where is the demonic ancestor?" There was no emotion in his eyes and words, as if he was the god of death from hell. Chapter 1560. Swoosh! Over the West Sea, Lu Sinan flew over at a high speed. The closer he got to the spatial vibrations, the more obvious they became. An expert. Ryu Sinan thought to himself, definitely an expert. As the spirit of the space, it was his first time encountering someone of the same element who could reach such a level. Just the aftershock alone could reach the coast thousands of miles away. Too powerful. He had to see for himself what kind of expert this was. For this reason, Ryu Sinan increased his speed. The urge to worship the expert grew stronger. After flying for a while, his expression suddenly became serious. As the spatial vibrations became more obvious, a special aura started to appear. What is this? Ryu Sinan could not tell, so he could only continue on his way. After flying for another 50 miles, the special aura became even more intense. It was only when it entered his body that he realized, the aura of death. This is definitely not an orthodox martial cultivator. After thinking for a while, Ryu Sinan thought to himself, could it be a demonic cultivator? Just the aura alone was enough to make one fearful. The person who released it was definitely not an ordinary demonic cultivator. It could very well be the demonic ancestor. Ryu Sinan's expression became even more serious. If it were anyone else, they would have turned back immediately if they guessed that it might be the demonic ancestor. After all, such an expert was not to be trifled with. Ryu Sinan did not back down. Instead, he continued to fly at an extremely fast speed. He told Jun Changshao that he had gotten lost and came to the West Sea. However, the real reason was to investigate the Zhanyue Pavilion and the demonic ancestor. Now that he had found a clue, he would definitely pursue it to the end. This was the duty of a demon exterminator. Swoosh! He continued to move forward courageously. The spatial vibrations increased in frequency, and the aura of death became even more intense. Gradually, another aura drifted over. Ryu Sinan frowned and said, "The smell of blood." He could not be sure if the person who shook the spatial vibrations was the demonic ancestor. However, from the strong smell of blood, he could tell that the other party was definitely not a kind person. They were probably carrying out a massacre at this moment. He had to stop them. Anyone who committed crimes and committed heinous crimes could be classified as a demon. Hence, as a demon exterminator, Ryu Sinan's duty was to exterminate demons and uphold justice. However, when he finally arrived at the area where the spatial vibrations were the most frequent, he saw that the hidden spirit island had stopped because the array formation had been controlled. When he saw the space that had been split into 4 corners, his expression gradually stiffened. Corpses were strewn across the beach, and heads were scattered all over the ground. Blood seeped into the sand and dyed it bright red. Ryu Sinan frowned. As a demon exterminator who had battled evil demon cultivators for many years, there was nothing he had not seen before. But now, he was deeply shaken by the scene that resembled a slaughterhouse. Just the corpses alone numbered 2,000 to 3,000. The most shocking thing was that the beach didn't look too messy, and there were no obvious signs of fighting. Could it be that the victim didn't resist at all during the process of being killed? Or was his corpse dumped here? Swish! Ryu Sinan flew along the edge of the spatial rift and landed on a corpse. After confirming that it was still warm, he judged in his heart, this should be the scene of the crime. He stood up and scanned the corpses around him. He immediately discovered the problem. The victims were all dressed in black, and there was a strange crescent moon pattern printed on their chests. Buried Moon Pavilion. Could it be that this island is their headquarters? Roar! Roar! At this moment, the tragic roar of a demon beast came from the forest in the distance. There was some kind of power in the spatial cage. Ryu Sinan could not use his spiritual senses to detect it. He could only quickly walk toward the source of the sound. On the way, he saw many demon beast corpses in the forest. In the end, all of them had their chests pierced and their crystal cores taken away. Tyrannosaurus rex. Iron-scaled bird. Ryu Sinan confirmed the species of the demon beast corpses. The shock in his heart grew stronger. These were species that had been extinct in the upper realm for tens of thousands of years. How could they exist on a small island? Boom! There was a sound in the distance, as if a huge rock had fallen to the ground. Ryu Sinan immediately walked over. When he was 100 feet away, he saw a big guy that looked like a collection of ores lying on the ground. Blood was spurting wildly from its broken chest. The golden spirit stone golem. Although the demon beasts he had encountered before were extinct, according to Ryu Sinan's understanding, they were only at the core transformation realm at their peak. The demon beast in front of him, which looked like a collection of ores, was comparable to the truth-seeking realm at its peak. Suddenly, a surprised voice sounded. Ryu Sinan hurriedly looked up and saw Jun Changshao in a black robe standing on the corpse of the golden spirit stone golem. Ryu Sinan was stunned. Could it be that he was the murderer who killed the members of Buried Moon Pavilion and the demon beasts? Jun Changshao threw the crystal core he had just taken into his spatial ring and said, "Brother Lu, we meet again." Ryu Sinan's stunned expression was replaced by solemnity because he saw the huge scythe lying on the corpse. The aura of death was released from it without restraint. There was no mistake. This guy was the murderer. Swoosh! Jun Changshao jumped down from the demon beast's corpse and said, "Brother Lu, you're a step too late. I've taken care of all the members of Buried Moon Pavilion here." Ryu Sinan subconsciously stepped back to keep a sufficient distance from him. Although Gosheng was no longer as cold-blooded and ruthless as when he was slaughtering, because of hard-to-retract blade, there was still a terrifying aura around him that seemed to come from hell. Normal people would definitely not dare to get too close. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said in a deep voice, "You killed all these people and demon beasts." "That's right." Jun Changshao said. Ryu Sinan said, "That's a bit cruel." Jun Changshao said indifferently, "They wanted to kill me, so I killed them." Is that cruel? Gosheng firmly believed that if he did not use hard to retract blade and did not have the ability to escape, he would have been surrounded and beaten to death by Buried Moon Pavilion. Moreover, since Yao Menjing was controlled and used as a tool to open the entrance to the demonic domain, Jun Changshao had already classified Buried Moon Pavilion as an enemy. If he encountered them, it would be either you die or I die. Sigh. Ryu Sinan sighed. Do not misunderstand. He did not have the heart of a saint and would not feel sad for the members of Buried Moon Pavilion who were killed. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said with a serious look, your murderous aura is too strong. If you don't control it in time, it will inevitably disturb your mind and you will walk the path of no return. This was why he said it was cruel. To be exact, Jun Changshao looked very clear-headed at the moment, but he was still shrouded in the aura of death. He was afraid that in time, he would fall into the demonic path and become a great demon who only knew how to kill. Fall into the demonic path? Jun Changshao said with a disdainful smile, if I become a demon, what can Buddha do to me? Ryu Sinan's frown deepened. This was no longer the sect master Jun who was chatting and laughing with him in the restaurant, drinking to his heart's content. Oh, I forgot. You're a demon exterminator. Jun Changshao rested his scythe on his shoulder and said calmly, are you worried that I will become an unpardonable demon in the future and want to represent justice and destroy me? Boom! Ryu Sinan put down the stone coffin and shook his arm. Streaks of spatial attributes circled around his fingers and said, from the fluctuations just now, Jun Patriarch seems to have mastered spatial powers. I would like to experience it today. It was here. Jun Qi Di Go Fei vs. the demon-killing general of Jiatang. Chapter 1561. Ryu Sinan wanted to fight with Jun Changshao for no other reason than the fact that the other party also controlled the power of space. After all, it was not easy to find someone with the same attribute. The 5 elements were common in the upper realm. Attributes such as space were very rare and could be classified as a rare species. All right. Jun Changshao did not refuse. Using the 4th form of the Sword of Agony gave him a strong fighting spirit. But Jun Changshao added, it's not interesting to just compare notes. Why don't we add some stakes? Here comes the trick. The system was not surprised at all. Ever since this guy invited Ryu Sinan for a meal, it was like a weasel paying a visit to a chicken. He was up to no good. What stakes? The loser has to promise the winner one thing unconditionally. Ryu Sinan fell silent. Of course. Jun Chang smiled and said, if Big Brother Lu loses, I naturally won't let you do anything that offends the heavens. All right. Ryu Sinan agreed. He already had an idea. If he won against Jun Changshao, he would let him follow him to the demon-cleansing mountain to eliminate the devil in his heart and become an upright and kind person. This was a little difficult because Gosheng was not possessed by the devil. How could there be any devil in his heart? As for becoming an upright and kind person, demonic territory. The demon ancestor was still using his ability to heal his injuries. His face was gradually turning from pale to rosy. Based on the current situation, it would take some time for him to return to the state he was in when he entered and activate the formation to return to Hidden Spirit Island. Although his condition was slowly recovering, the anger in his heart was even stronger. The soldiers and various resources in the ancestral land had been taken away. He had to find the culprit and burn his bones to ashes. Sigh. He came to the demonic territory to find solitude. If he went out and saw his subordinates and monsters on the island being slaughtered, he did not know if he could take the blow. There was no one else who could make a villain feel sorry for him. A mountain could not accommodate 2 tigers. Who asked the upper realm to have a person who did not play by the rules and liked to cheat? Jun Changshao. Master Devil, please cherish this opportunity. Whoosh! Swish! Two streams of light flew up from the hidden spirit island and hovered in the air with a certain distance between them. The aura that emerged from them interfered with the space within a few hundred miles, causing it to gradually distort. The birds and seagulls did not dare to approach and could only choose to stay away from this place. Jun Changxiao's expression was solemn. Although he had killed quite a number of truth-seeking realm warriors just now, the aura around this demon exterminator was obviously different. It should be very difficult to deal with him. The system said, if the host doesn't have a knife that can't be retracted, you'll only be abused in front of him. What a pity. Jun Changxiao said, I do. Now, this guy was so self-righteous when he cheated. He was so crazy. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said seriously, come on. He was also very cautious. After all, so many members of the Zanyue Pavilion and demonic beasts had been killed, which was enough to prove that the other party was very powerful. Swish! Jun Changxiao waved one hand, and the death scythe cut through the void, slashing out an extremely cold saber chi that contained an extremely strong spatial binding force. It was this overbearing force that made the Zanyue Pavilion members and demonic beasts unable to move. In the end, they could only watch helplessly as they died. Swish! Ryu Sinan's figure flashed, and he avoided the saber chi. You can indeed avoid it. As he knew that the other party had a space spirit, Jun Changxiao was not surprised. Earthquake palm. At this moment, Ryu Sinan passed through layers of spatial binding force and appeared above Jun Changxiao. The energy gathered between his fingers instantly materialized and bombarded the void frequently, forming layers of visible energy ripples. With a space spirit, his main combat method was to control space. For example, he had restrained the members of the Zanyue Pavilion who were escaping in Demonic Affinity City. Swish! Jun Changxiao raised the death scythe and slashed at the energy ripples. Several streams of light directly tore through the void. Ka ka ka. Ka 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 ka. Pieces of space were mercilessly sliced and instantly became riddled with scars. This level of combat was very visually appealing. At the same time, it would also bring about large-scale destruction. Fortunately, this was the West Sea. Even if the space collapsed, there would not be any danger. However, Hidden Spirit Island was unlucky. Due to the instability caused by the spatial tears, a mountain wall in the southwest corner of the island suddenly collapsed. Jun Changxiao and Ryu Sinan had just started their battle and were still in the testing stage. If they really went all out, Master Mo's home would probably be, boom. Boom. At this moment, the sound of an intense battle resounded in mid-air. After a simple exchange, Ryu Sinan became serious. He used all sorts of spatial martial arts frequently. The sky above the island was crazily twisting and folding. There was no place intact. Jun Changxiao was not to be outdone. He waved the hard-to-withdraw scythe and slashed crazily. The cold saber chi tore the surroundings into pieces. A spatial attribute battle that destroyed the ecological environment had officially begun. Whoever had the better skills would win the competition. Let's wait and see. Hoo-hoo. 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 Near Hidden Spirit Island, due to the turbulence of space, it lost its original balance. The seawater began to boil violently, forming huge waves that mercilessly attacked the beach. Crack! Crack! The rocks and trees on the island were also attacked and began to collapse in large batches. Space was the foundation of the world's stability. If there was any change or destruction, the disaster would be unimaginable. Whine! Whine! As Jun Changxiao and Ryu Sinan's battle reached its climax, the array formation system on the island began to weaken. The entire Hidden Spirit Island looked even more unstable. Boom! 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 The mountains collapsed and the waves swallowed everything. The island that had existed for 100,000 years was experiencing a huge disaster. If it had consciousness and could still speak, it would definitely cry and shout, "Stop fighting!" Jun Changshao and Ryu Sinan were still fighting in the sky. As they both controlled the power of space, their attacks were destructive. The battle was getting bigger and bigger, and the funds were still burning. Boom! Boom! The two exchanged more than 10 moves and entered a temporary resting state. They were dozens of feet apart. With them as the center, the space within dozens of miles was filled with holes and cracks. Awesome! Jun Changshao said excitedly. This was the first time he had used hard to stop to fight with an opponent for so long. Based on the current situation, it seemed like it would be difficult to determine the victor. Ryu Sinan was equally excited. Fighting with a martial artist of the same attribute had greatly benefited him. Come! Fight! The two shouted in unison and began the second round of fighting. Boom! 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 The power of space exploded even more violently. The more they fought, the more exhilarated they felt. Hidden Spirit Island shook more and more. After dozens of moves, the ground finally could not withstand the spatial imbalance and began to crack. The shockwave spread to Hidden Spirit City. The surrounding walls collapsed crazily, and the scene was like the end of the world. The streets in the city quickly cracked open, and rows of buildings collapsed. Even the majestic palace was not spared. In just a short time, an ancient city that had existed for 100,000 years turned into ruins in the blink of an eye due to the spatial imbalance. One could vaguely hear a sad song. It was the coldest. The branches bloomed. I saw the spring coming to you, phew. In the demonic territory, the demon ancestor exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. After recuperating, his condition had returned to how it was before he entered. It's time to go back. The demon ancestor stood up and walked to the teleportation array. He skillfully formed a seal and shouted, "All Tao belongs to me, turn the starry sky." Whine. In an instant, the array flashed with a scorching light. After reaching a dazzling level, there was a loud boom, and it actually exploded on the spot. Exploded. Exploded. Boom! The demon ancestor was blown away. He landed on the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Chapter 1562. Above the Hidden Spirit Island, Jun Changshao and Ryu Sinan were in the midst of a fierce battle. The power of space was wreaking havoc around them, and the damage caused would not be healed in a short period of time. Strictly speaking, this was not a battle of life and death, but a sparring session. Therefore, although the scene was explosive, it did not look tragic enough. Swish! The two entered a temporary truce. Jun Changshao said, "I haven't had such a good fight in a long time." In the past, he had always been cutting grass crazily, but today, he could fight evenly with a martial artist. The process was simply too satisfying. Me too, Ryu Sinan said. After wandering the world for so many years, all the opponents he encountered were extremely vicious. He would often choose to end the battle quickly. Only this time, he completely let loose and even hoped that he could fight for a while longer. Because of their mentality, the battle was not tragic. The two were more like old friends testing each other's martial arts. What a pity. Ryu Sinan shook his head and said, "You and I will have to decide the winner in the end." Buzz! Buzz! He spread out his hands, and the power of space crazily spread out. From afar, it looked like a lotus flower enveloping him. Are you going to fight for real? Jun Changshao held his scythe in front of him, and his expression gradually became serious. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan's hands moved casually and said, "My move is called Sky-Shattering Cloud Lotus. It gathers the surrounding space to form the strongest attack. Buzz. Buzz. With every move of his palms, layers of space power twisted and superimposed around him, and the lotus-like shape became more and more obvious. The space was stirred, and the seawater below boiled violently. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. The ground on the hidden spirit island cracked faster and faster, gradually showing crisscrossing deep trenches, as if it would disintegrate at any time. In fact, the entire island was supported by an ancient array that had existed for a long time. It would not be affected by the use of space power by a martial artist in the truth-seeking realm. However, the problem was that Jun Changshao had broken it, and it had been shut down. Only when an array formation was in operation would it be effective. If it remained in a closed state, it would lose its defense. Let alone a truth-seeking realm cultivator, even a revolving core realm cultivator would suffer fatal damage. The current situation was that the entire array formation system on the island had completely failed due to the collapse of space and Earth. At the same time, the two-way teleportation array was also affected. The demonic ancestor of the demonic domain did not know about this. He activated it when the array formation had completely collapsed. Finally, he was blasted out. The level of the array he had set up was not low, so it was very difficult to destroy it. At the same time, once it was destroyed, or even if the array exploded, the destructive power would be very serious, so he instantly fainted. Fortunately, his physical body was pretty good. If it was an ordinary body, it would have long been reduced to nothingness. That was not the main point. The main point was that the explosion of the two-way teleportation array meant that there was no way out. The fiend ancestor would be trapped in the demonic territory. He could only pray that the seal set up by the 10 major immortal sects and the various clans would weaken over time. Even after 100,000 years, the seal was still as strong as ever. As long as no one tried to break it, the possibility of it weakening was close to zero. He had entered the demonic region with the mentality of leading a million-strong army. In the end, not only did he suffer a heavy blow, he was also trapped inside. Master Devil. You're too difficult. What had the 10 major immortal sects been doing recently? They had mobilized all their forces to search the buried moon pavilion for the fiend ancestor's hiding place. Now, they could announce that the crisis had been resolved in advance because most of the members of the buried moon pavilion had been killed. Even the resurrected fiend ancestor was trapped in his home. The initiators of this situation, Jun Changshao and Ryu Sinan, did not expect that they would carelessly trap an extremely dangerous villain in the demonic territory while they were busy fighting on the island. Others did good deeds without leaving their names, but they did good deeds without knowing. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. Ryu Sinan was still accumulating power for a big move, and the space was still folding crazily. At this moment, if a martial artist with a low cultivation level entered, he would definitely be cut into pieces by the turbulence. Boom! Boom! After a while, the hidden spirit island could not withstand the pressure of the space and instantly fell apart, turning into pieces that scattered on the sea surface. The base left behind 100,000 years ago had completely turned into nothingness today. Withdraw. Ryu Sinan clasped his hands together. Buzz. Buzz. The folded space seemed to shrink in an instant, and a palm-sized bright lotus flower gathered in front of him. Sky-bearing cloud lotus. It was one of Ryu Sinan's killer moves. The principle of this martial art was to constantly compress space. The wider the area it covered, the more essence it would gather. Jun Changshao furrowed his brows. Just from the degree of its brilliance, this little lotus must contain explosive energy. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said proudly, although I'm only in the middle level of the truth-seeking realm, I have extremely high control over the spirit of space. My strength is no weaker than that of the upper level of the truth-seeking realm, so you must take this move seriously. Understood. Jun Changshao placed the death scythe in front of him. Whoosh! The power of the fire soul and the power of evil instantly filled the entire blade. Half of his body was enveloped in flames, and the other half was enveloped in darkness. In the fourth form of the hard-to-retract blade, he used 2 types of spirits. This was very serious. It was not over yet. In the flames and darkness, his exposed skin gradually petrified. Ryu Sinan knew that Jun Changshao had 2 types of spirits, so it was not surprising that he released them. But when he saw that his skin was stone-like, he was shocked. "Are you a descendant of the stone statue clan?" "That's right." Go Xing said shamelessly. The bloodline of the stone statue clan was inherited in the land of demon affinity. If others insisted on thinking so, he would not deny it. After all, he had a status. Statement. "I'm not a scammer." Ryu Sinan gradually understood and said, "No wonder you have such a strong killing intent. It turns out that you are a descendant of the stone statue clan like that guy." "That guy?" Jun Changshao said, "Who is Brother Lu talking about?" When he was in the lower world, he had learned about the stone statue clan from Black and White Rakshasa, but since he ascended to the upper world, he had never seen one of the 3 major clans. "A guy who does whatever he wants." Ryu Sinan shook his head and said, "Let's not talk about him." Jun Changshao was speechless. What was the difference between him and a cliffhanger like this? Of course, Go Xing analyzed from the other party's words that the 2 should know each other and might even be friends. Because the tone was full of complaints and not the anger of an enemy. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan withdrew his distracting thoughts and said, "It's about time. Let's decide the winner." "Okay." Jun Changshao no longer thought about other things. Fire and evil spirit energy madly poured into hard-to-retract blade, causing it to instantly gather the 2 colors of crimson and darkness. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A strong wind blew, as if crying. If this continued, the space would not be able to take it. Ryu Sinan spread out his hands, and a bright lotus flew over. The sky that was gradually darkening was instantly dyed bright. Break. Jun Changshao held the death scythe with both hands and took a step in the air. Under the support of weapon, bloodline, and dual spirits, he directly tore out a shocking blade aura. Whoosh whoosh. The blade aura swept across the surface of the sea, and the water was directly cut open. Boom, from afar, it was as if a nuclear bomb had exploded in midair, and a spectacular mass of energy rose. Half of it was dazzling and pure white, and the other half was crimson and black. It was a tragic confrontation. Gurgle gurgle. The energy and heat continued to erupt, and the seawater boiled violently and dried up. The floating pieces of land on Hidden Spirit Island did not escape the demon's grasp and gradually evaporated into nothingness. If an island collapsed, there might be a possibility of repairing it. Now that there was nothing left, it meant that the demon ancestors' base had not only been ruthlessly destroyed, but also turned into ashes by the 2 of them. Chapter 1563. The 2 types of energy confronted each other in the form of a ball in the air for nearly a quarter of an hour. The seawater was deeply affected and gradually sank into a huge pit. The water that surged from all directions evaporated as soon as it touched the edge. Crack. 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 The surrounding space was violently dazzling, and the collapse range also spread from dozens of miles to hundreds of miles. No one would have thought that a high-level battle would take place in the depths of the West Sea, let alone that an island that had existed for a long time would turn into nothing. In fact, in terms of realm, the battle between Jun Changshao and Ryu Sinan was far less intense than the high-level truth-seeking realm. They didn't even use the power of the true spirit. However, because both of them had mastered the space attribute, the battle didn't look bad. Boom, the 2 types of energy were in a stalemate for a long time. Then, like fireworks, they exploded in the air. Streams of light and fireballs flew out crazily. The scene was even more magnificent. Swish. Swish. The streams of light cut through the space like knives. Sizzle. Sizzle. The scorching fireballs fell into the seawater and produced billowing white smoke. The white smoke drifted in the explosion area as if a thin layer of gauze was draped over it. It was as beautiful as a fairyland. However, when the fog dissipated, when the fragmented space appeared, it seemed to have turned into hell in an instant. Puff. Ryu Sinan, who was suspended in the air, spat out a mouthful of blood. His face gradually turned pale. Although the battle just now lasted less than an hour, it consumed a lot of energy in his dantian. He seemed to be exhausted. Brother Lu. Jun Changshao, who was standing opposite him, said, "In this battle, you, puff. Puff. Puff." He couldn't suppress the boiling blood in his body. As if a sluice gate had been opened, the blood spurted out crazily from his mouth. At this moment, the death scythe in his hand flashed a ray of light and quickly returned to its pocket-sized form. The black robe on his body also turned into smoke and dissipated. The time limit of hard-to-retract blade was over. Without the support of the fourth form, Jun Changxiao's domineering and ruthless aura disappeared. He instantly withered. In terms of state, he was even worse than Ryu Sinan. This was not because of the side effects, but because he was exhausted. In fact, although there were side effects in the fourth form of hard-to-retract blade, there would be enough buffer time after it ended. However, Jun Changxiao's energy burst crazily and sped up this stage. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said with a smile. No. Jun Chang smiled. I didn't lose. I can still fight, swish. Forcing himself to speak exhausted his remaining strength. His body suddenly lost balance and fell into the sea. He also fainted gloriously. Who was the winner of this battle? From the fact that Ryu Sinan still had the strength to fly, it meant that he had won. However, it was an extremely difficult victory. After flying to the distant island, he fell to the ground together with Jun Changshao. It was difficult for him to stand up again. A middle-level truth-seeking realm cultivator with a space spirit had been beaten so badly by a peak revolving core realm cultivator. It was not appropriate to say that he had won. Demonic region. When Goshin fainted, the demon ancestor happened to wake up. He stood up with a dirty face and tried to recall what had happened. After confirming that the array had completely exploded, he could no longer control his emotions. He roared at the sky, "How do we get out? Calm down, calm down." The demon ancestor took a deep breath and calmed his restless mind. He said, "The array must have aged and exploded after 2 teleportations. As long as we rearrange it and establish contact with Hidden Spirit Island, we can get out. As long as one's mind was not slippery, there would always be more ways than difficulties." Swish. He sat down cross-legged and recalled the array. He said, "Setting up the array doesn't require cultivation. However, because it is too complicated, it will take at least 1 or 2 months. He had waited 100,000 years for his resurrection. Why would he care about a few days? It had to be said that as a big shot of the demonic race who had dared to go against the 10 great immortal sects, his mentality was really strong. On a nameless island. A cool breeze blew, warming one's heart. Jun Changshao could not feel it because he was still unconscious. Also, because he had fallen in the wrong position, he was hanging on a tree. Ryu Sinan, who was under the tree, tried to get up many times, but he did not succeed. He could only lie down like mud and said worriedly, "Jun Patriarch will be fine, right?" He was fine. Go Sheng could endure. Cough, cough. One day later, Jun Changshao, who was hanging on the tree, opened his eyes. He found that everything in his field of vision was upside down. He was shocked and fell down instantly, crashing into Ryu Sinan's head. Hiss. Hiss. Because the fight was too fierce, the two of them lay neatly under the tree, unable to move. Fortunately, they were lying flat and could look at the blue sky. Brother Lu. After recovering a little strength, Jun Changshao said, both of us are weak. It's a draw. Ryu Sinan was silent. This guy is obviously weaker than me. How can he say it's a draw? Of course, Jun Changshao said, it's my fault for being merciful at the beginning. Otherwise, you would have lost. Indeed. Go Sheng was merciful. He could have used the power of absolute space to bind him like how he killed the members of the Zanyue Pavilion and the monsters. But in the end, he chose to give up because they were friends. Ryu Sinan did not deny this. When he came, the space vibration was very obvious, which made him infer that he was a master. But during the fight with Jun Changshao, the use of the power of space was obviously not as strong as before. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said bitterly, since I started practicing martial arts, no one has ever let me win. You are the first. Brother Lu is also the most difficult person I've met since I started practicing martial arts. Jun Changshao said with a sad expression, at the same time, he reminds me of my life and death brother. Who? Gu Zhaoxi. The elder who sacrificed himself for the sake of all living beings in the world. That's right. Ryu Sinan knew more about Gu Zhaoxi. He originally wanted to call him a traitor, but after considering that Gu Zhaoxi sacrificed himself for righteousness and destroyed the warship, he changed the way he addressed him. We got to know each other after fighting. Later on, we became life and death brothers. Jun Changshao recalled the past, his eyes full of acting. Ryu Sinan said, your brother sacrificed himself for the world. This spirit is worthy of being remembered by future generations. Yes. Jun Changshao said proudly, the first mission of the sect of all times is to do our best for the world. Pa! The bird flew across the sky, and when its stomach hurt, it excreted feces. Coincidentally, it landed on the head of Dog Leftover, whose mouth was full of nonsense. Ha ha ha. The system laughed. Because he was weak, Jun Changshao did not have the strength to lift his hand to wipe it away. He could only continue with a pile of bird feces on his head. Brother Lu, don't we practitioners have to be chivalrous in our hearts? That's right. Ryu Sinan agreed. Not only was he chivalrous in his heart, but he was also chivalrous in his actions. If that's the case, Jun Changshao said, why don't you join the sect of all times and take over my brother's position as an elder? You can continue his great chivalrous spirit. This, Ryu Sinan fell silent. A ripple appeared in his heart. Chapter 1564. Jun Changshao and Ryu Sinan lay there for 2 to 3 days. After being exposed to the wind and the sun, they finally regained their strength. Once they could move, the first thing they did was to take a bath at the beach. Because when they couldn't move, their bodies were covered in bird droppings. Especially Go Sheng. There was a lot of droppings on his head. This made him wonder if he had a GPS toilet system installed on his body. All the birds that passed by were pooping on his head, and they were all accurate. No choice. The system complained, who asked your head to be the brightest? After bathing, Jun Changshao lay on the beach and basked in the sun. His face showed a satisfied expression. Ever since he transmigrated, the thing that made him feel the most carefree was entering a period of weakness after using hard to keep blade. Because he didn't have to cultivate martial arts or think about sect matters, he could finally relax. Brother Lu. Jun Changshao asked, have you thought about it? These few days, they talked a lot. From astronomy to geography, there was nothing they didn't talk about. Ryu Sinan said, the duty of a demon exterminator is to eliminate demons and protect the Tao. There are too many restrictions on joining a sect, so. I'm sorry. There are no restrictions in the Realm Hall. No, I can do what I want. I don't have to listen to their orders. Brother Lu, you can still enjoy absolute freedom if you join the sect of all times. Jun Changshao had always been serious when it came to recruiting talents. Moreover, he almost couldn't handle hard to keep blade. For such a special kind of powerhouse, joining the sect of all times would be like adding wings to a tiger. He would even be happy to serve him. The system wanted to scold him. Indeed, joining the sect of all times might give him temporary freedom. But in the future, as long as he was assigned, he would immediately become a tool. For example, the Taishian spiritual master and Fan Yezi. Gu Zhaoxi was even more serious. He became a bomber and carried explosives to help him. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan said, everyone has their own aspirations. You can't force them. The World Hall was similar to the Alchemy Hall. Both of them belonged to organizations that did not belong to any faction. It was not against the rules for their members to join a sect. However, he wanted freedom and did not want to be shackled. In fact, in the world of martial arts, many people were unwilling to join forces. They yearned to be free and unrestrained, and yearned for the world to be their home. That was why there was a group of rogue cultivators. All right. Jun Changshao took out 2 bowls of fried rice and a jar of drunken dream from his interspatial ring and said, let's not talk about such depressing matters. Come, let's eat and drink. The system was speechless. If you can't trick him, you still have to resort to this method. Looking at the fried rice and smelling the fragrant smell of wine, Ryu Sinan couldn't stand it anymore. When a person was weak, it was easy for them to feel hungry. Therefore, the food and wine that Jun Changshao took out was undoubtedly extremely lethal. Thank you, Jun Patriarch, for your hospitality again. Ryu Sinan did not stand on ceremony. He picked up the fried rice and ate it. Once again, he touched the depths of his soul and recalled the past. Tears flowed uncontrollably. A man does not cry easily. It is only because he has not been deeply hurt. Brother Lu. Jun Changshao clinked a bowl of wine with him and said, being an honorary elder is fine too. Pooh. 3 days later. Ryu Sinan had recovered about 50 to 60% of his strength. Although Jun Changshao could walk, the side effects were still there. Therefore, he did not have any cultivation. Jun Patriarch. Ryu Sinan carried the sarcophagus on his back and cupped his fists. Goodbye. Ah. Jun Changshao was instantly dumbfounded. During this period of time, you have been eating and drinking my food. Now that you have more or less recovered, you want to leave me on a deserted island. Brother Lu. Jun Changshao said with a bitter face, I used a lot of energy and need time to recover. Can you send me back to the sect of all times? Okay. Ryu Sinan released his true spirit energy and enveloped Go Sheng. Then, he flew away from the deserted island and headed towards, wrong. Jun Changshao hurriedly shouted, go east. Ryu Sinan smiled awkwardly. He turned around and continued to fly. As a result, he was corrected countless times along the way. Jun Changshao collapsed. A guy who controlled the space spirit could actually have such a poor sense of direction. Fortunately, he had him to guide the way. If he was left alone in the West Sea, wouldn't he be lost forever? In fact, the reason why Ryu Sinan had such a poor sense of direction was because of the side effects of the space spirit. It was similar to how Gu Zhaoxi had the reincarnation spirit and lost key memories every time he was reborn. Even after eating the devil fruit, he could not swim. Therefore, since he had obtained a special ability, it was reasonable for him to be deprived of a certain ability. But here was the problem. Why was Jun Changshao completely fine? One had to know that he controlled the fire spirit and evil spirit. There had to be at least 2 side effects. Under normal circumstances, when something could not be rationally explained from a scientific point of view, we usually called this phenomenon the thick skin problem, LPWT. Big Brother Lu, when we reach the sect of all times, I will prepare a good meal for you. The fried rice you ate before was all prepared in advance. Some of it has been prepared for many days. When the time comes, I will let you eat freshly fried rice, hot ones. Big Brother Lu traveled thousands of miles to come back from me. This meal must be prepared. You must not refuse. The sect of all times does not have any strong points, but the food and wine will definitely fill your stomach. Jun Changshao spoke the entire way. Ryu Sinan listened the entire way. Although he looked like he was about to collapse, he was actually looking forward to it. The chili fried rice was already so delicious. If he wanted to eat ready-made he could not think about it. Just thinking about it made him salivate. A few days later, the two of them landed in front of the sect of all times. Girl. Jun Changshao had just entered when he said loudly, "We have a distinguished guest. Quickly prepare the most sumptuous meal to entertain him." Jun Patriarch, there's no need for that. Ryu Sinan said that, but his body followed him in honestly. Sigh. It was hard to refuse such hospitality. The dining hall started to get busy. Xian Songbao was in charge of washing the vegetables, Ma Yongning was in charge of cutting the vegetables, and the others were in charge of preparing the various ingredients and food. Patriarch's tone was obviously stronger when he said distinguished guest. This meant that they had to entertain him with the most expensive dishes. Therefore, after Lu Wancher carefully flipped through the Chinese cookbook, she directly chose the Manchu Han complete feast set. It's over. Even the gods would not be able to handle this. Preparing for the feast required time. Jun Changshao took advantage of this time to bring Ryu Sinan around the sect. Finally, he purposely came to the courtyard where Gu Zhaoxi used to live. Although he had left, the courtyard was very clean. It should be cleaned regularly. Brother. Jun Changshao squatted at the door and said sadly, "I'm here to see you." In an instant, his face was covered in tears. True acting skills did not require any preparation, let alone the assistance of props. Looking at the simple courtyard and feeling the righteous aura in the air, Ryu Sinan put down the sarcophagus and placed one hand on his chest. The highest respect appeared in his eyes. A great hero would serve the country and the people. He, Gu Zhaoxi, did it. He was a great hero. The two of them reminisced for a while. Lu Wancher's voice came, "Patriarch, the feast is ready." "Brother Lu." Jun Changshao said, "Please follow me to the dining hall." Ryu Sinan said seriously, "Jun Patriarch, let's eat here. Let me toast to Hero Gu and his soul in heaven." "Okay. Here." 1 and 2 moved the table and chairs over. They brought out exquisite dishes one after another. All kinds of fragrances filled the courtyard, making Ryu Sinan's mind ripple. "Brother Lu, please. Please." Ryu Sinan picked up the chopsticks and carefully tasted the food. His soul instantly floated to the sky, returning to the node where Gu Zhaoxi rushed to the 9 battleships without hesitation. He once again witnessed the magnificent feat that made him respect him. The feast lasted for a long time. There was no need to describe the details. In short, it was like a dream. After the feast ended, Ryu Sinan gently put down his chopsticks and looked at the main hall of the courtyard. He said seriously, "Jun Patriarch, I am willing to inherit Hero Gu's spirit and his chivalry." Chapter 1565. Ryu Sinan compromised. That's right, being in the courtyard where Gu Zhaoxi used to live made him feel a sense of righteousness. So even though he was dead, his spirit had to be inherited. It was ridiculous to talk about chivalry in a world where the strong preyed on the weak, but there would always be people who believed in it. Ryu Sinan was this kind of person. He never cared about how others looked at him, nor did he care about being mocked by others. So when he felt Gu Zhaoxi's righteousness in the illusion created by the food, he decided to carry his banner and truly defend it, to truly inherit it. Brother Lu. Jun Changshao said seriously, I won't force you. Ryu Sinan said, I'm willing to do it, just to continue Hero Gu's spirit. Good. Jun Changshao swept all the food on the table away, took out an entry form, and said heroically, from today onwards, Elder Gu's position and spirit will be inherited by Brother Lu. If he's in heaven, he'll definitely be very happy. Poor Gu Zhaoxi. Before he died, he helped Go Xing increase his realm, and after he died, he still had to help Go Xing recruit people, squeezing every last bit of value out of him. This was probably the true meaning of life and death, in Life and Death Brothers. Looking at the soup scattered on the ground, Ryu Sinan's face immediately showed a pained expression. Even though the dishes on the plate were finished, the soup was still a delicacy. Wasting it like this was a bit of a waste. Wait a minute. Was it because of chivalry or because of food? It should be both. The main hall on the main peak was still under construction, so Jun Changshao gathered all the disciples on Dragon Head Peak and announced loudly, from today onwards, Ryu Sinan will take over Gu Zhaoxi's position and become the new elder of the sect of all times. Everyone, give him a warm welcome. Clap clap clap. All the disciples applauded. Ryu Sinan walked up to the stage, moistened his throat, and gave his speech. Elder Gu is a man of honor. Now that I have inherited his position, I will definitely pass on this spirit. Pa pa pa. Another round of applause sounded. After the ceremony, Ryu Sinan went to the cafeteria first. As an elder, he naturally had to pay attention to the food. Hall Master Lu, what a coincidence. My surname is also Lu. If the dishes are too simple, it's easy to get sick of them. Hall Master Lu, do you have any other dishes? Can you make a few for me to try? Before entering the sect, Ryu Sinan's expression, _. After entering the sect, Ryu Sinan's expression changed. At this point, he could more or less guess that choosing to stay was not to inherit Gu Zhaoxi's righteousness, but to inherit his appetite. With the addition of Ryu Sinan, the strength of the upper echelons of the sect of all times had increased by another level. At present, including Yao Menjing and Gueba Jiang, the sect already had 10 people in the truth-seeking realm. Moreover, they had reached the middle level and had space spirits. Did the Xian sect have such a lineup? No. Even if there were truth-seeking realm, there would not be so many of them. Therefore, after ascending to the upper realm for more than 3 years, the strength of the sect of all times had been greatly improved. The only thing they lacked was recognition. Host, the top strength and backbone of the sect have been built up. You can spend achievement points to upgrade the sect level, the system said. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, spending money to upgrade is really fucked up. With enough strength in the lower realm, the certification hall would personally send people to certify. It was more comfortable than the system. Without such an organization in the upper realm, although he could still upgrade, he needed achievement points. It was like, no top-up. You're playing XX. Upgrading was not a big problem. Because with the release of the new Disciple Mall, the disciples were more enthusiastic about doing missions. When Jun Changshao went to the West Sea, his contribution points and achievement points had been increasing. He just needed to wait for a while. However, if he only got the recognition of the system and not the world, what if he could not complete the main mission? Back then, for the main mission, Jun Changshao gathered all the powerhouses and forces in the Falling Star continent. With an attitude of, I've finished speaking, who agrees and who disagrees? Only then did he reach the completion standard. No. Sitting in the study, he rubbed his temples and said, I need to make my presence known. The best way to get recognition from the world was to let them know that the sect of all times had the strength to not be afraid of any Xian sect. Are there any martial arts competitions or similar events recently for the disciples to fight and spread the name of the sect of all times? Jun Changshao asked. Continuously bullying the Sword Xian sect and the Sword Xian sect did not bring enough impact. If there was a competition like the Dragon and Tiger battle for hegemony, the disciples would be able to take part in the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. It would be perfect. Looking at the lower realm, the sect of all times' rise began in the Liang City sect competition, then they challenged the Sacred Spring sect and the Lily Holy sect, until they achieved unprecedented results in the Dragon and Tiger battle for hegemony. On the other hand, in the 3 years since they came to the upper realm, they did not participate in any major competitions. It was not that Jun Changshao did not want to seize such a good opportunity, but there really was no major competition. The conference held in the Divine Saint City previously was of high standard, but it was nothing more than a gathering of the big shots. Clan Leader Li. Arriving at the Drizzle Hall, he said, investigate if there are any competitions in the upper realm for the disciples. It would be best if it's of a large scale. Yes. Li Luoqiu immediately acted. The next day, he placed a stack of information on the table and said, Patriarch, according to the investigation, there are a total of 136 competitions held in the upper realm recently. So many. Jun Changxiao's eyes widened. Li Luoqiu said, and they are the ones that have been selected for the largest scale. Including many smaller competitions, there should be at least a few thousand. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes. The system said, what are you waiting for? Let all the disciples participate, 1 chapter per person will be enough until the end. Oh right. Li Luoqiu said, 10 years later, there will be a competition called the Favored Ones. The scale will be very large, and the martial artist who wins the final victory will be conferred the title of Favored Ones. Oh. Jun Changshao replied. If it was a competition held recently, he might be very tempted, but it would only be held 10 years later. The sect would be invincible in the world, what was the point of sending disciples to fight? 10 years later, invincible in the world. The system was speechless. You're really confident. However, Li Luoqiu added, the conditions for participating in the Favored One's battle are that you must not be more than 500 years old and have a cultivation base of the truth-seeking realm. So high. Jun Changshao was stunned. Other than some disciples in the sect, everyone else met the age requirement, but they had to be at the truth-seeking realm to participate. At present, only Yao Menjing could meet the requirements. Li Luoqiu continued, as long as you meet the conditions, anyone can participate in the Favored One's battle. I can participate too. Yes. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, interesting. Since transmigrating, Go Xing had never participated in a competition, because in any world, only the disciples of the sect were held, not the Patriarch's battle. At most, they would exchange pointers at some big shots meetings, but the nature was completely different. If I participate in the Favored One's battle, the others can only fight for second place, Jun Changshao said flatly, revealing an extremely strong pretentious aura. The system broke down. Who gave him this confidence? Chapter 1566. Jun Changshao was very confident, but the most important thing right now was to get through the period of weakness, so he obediently entered the secret realm. Ryu Sinan began to live a happy life, tasting the food cooked by Lu Wancher every day. He seemed to have forgotten that he was a demon exterminator and had the responsibility of eliminating demons. Of course. It was not only the food that shocked him. Next, he came in contact with the various training settings of the sect of all times. It was as if he had discovered a new continent and opened a door to a higher realm. Unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Walking out of the secret realm, Ryu Sinan recalled the scene where he was instantly killed by a powerful demon beast and immediately gave a professional evaluation. Hell mode is definitely comparable to a first-class forbidden area. Damn! Su Xiaoma, who was passing by, opened his eyes wide. The new version of the secret realm had been around for a while. Everyone was challenging the easy and normal mode, but this new elder actually challenged the hell mode. Fierce. Failing the challenge of the secret realm would result in a weakened state. Ryu Sinan lay in his room for a whole day until he recovered and then challenged the hard mode. Although he succeeded, he paid a big price. It was worth it. Because the improvement in all aspects was significant. With this kind of secret realm suitable for training, why would I worry about not being able to improve my realm? Ha! Ha ha ha! Ryu Sinan stood outside the secret realm and laughed, attracting the attention of a disciple named Mao Xiaodao who happened to pass by. He secretly said, "Sure enough, this new elder has seen the world." He was an outer sect disciple and usually cleaned with Du Nan, so he did not have much of a presence. However, because he had been in the sect for a few years, he knew all kinds of sect facilities like the back of his hand. It had even become a habit. Even if the patriarch took out something new, he would not be surprised. Ryu Sinan was different. Although his realm was high, it was the first time he came in contact with the sect facilities. When he realized that it was extremely helpful for martial arts, he naturally could not control his emotions. He could not control his emotions because he had taken all kinds of pills and cultivated all kinds of martial arts. Especially the Thousand Shadows art, it was an all-rounder technique that could adapt to all aspects. Brother Lu. After returning from the secret realm, Jun Changshao, who had recovered, asked, "How do you feel after joining the sect?" "Unbelievable, unbelievable." No words could describe the shock in Ryu Sinan's heart. If it weren't for Gu Zhaoxi's righteousness and Lu Wanquer's food, if he were given another chance to choose, he would definitely still become an elder of the sect of all times. Brother Lu. Jun Changshao said, "Although you have joined the sect, you have absolute freedom. You can go out and slay demons and devils at any time." This, Ryu Sinan considered for a long time and said, "Stay for a few more days." There were all kinds of facilities, all kinds of pills, and all kinds of delicacies. Although he enjoyed himself so much that he forgot to leave, as a demon exterminator, he would never forget his duty. Jun Changshao respected him and allowed him to leave the sect to do his own things. But, there was a prerequisite. Brother Lu. Jun Changshao threw over a pile of information and said, "I plan to let the disciples participate in the martial arts competitions held in various cities. Since you want to travel the world, why don't you lead them to participate?" As a demon exterminator with a high status and powerful abilities, it would be safe for him to bring his disciples to participate in various competitions. Okay. Ryu Sinan agreed. Slaying demons and defending justice meant that he had to roam the world anyway. It would not be a problem to bring them along. Okay. The system said, "A new tool is online." A few days later, Ryu Sinan familiarized himself with everything in the sect. He brought Lu Qianqian, Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, and the other disciples out of the sect of all times. Before they left, they packed a lot of fried rice and would sit down to eat once every few hundred miles. To put it nicely, they were hungry. Li Qingyang did not go because he had to build the main hall. Yi Xingchen did not go because he had to cultivate like crazy. The sect's level has been recognized by the system and the upper realm. There should be generous rewards, right? Jun Changshao sat in the study and muttered to himself. After that, he had nothing to do, so he often went to the medical hall, smithing hall, and poison hall to keep abreast of the progress of the instant pills, battle armor, and unmanned control technology. 3 years. The astral soul realm would come. He had to have enough strength to protect the sect from being invaded. This was Jun Changshao, a real man who would immediately throw himself into work after the week period. Ice Ray City. Just from the name alone, one could tell that this was a city covered in ice and snow. At this moment, Hundreds of thousands of martial artists were gathered in the central arena spectator area in the city. They stared intently at the graceful figure in the arena like a proud plum blossom. The disciples of this sect of all times are too beautiful. It's as if they've become one with the world of ice and snow. How can such a beautiful woman be sent out to fight and kill? Lu Qianshan heard the crowd's discussions, but her cold face and clear eyes did not show any emotion. She stood there like a perfect ice sculpture. Sometimes, a woman's beauty needed the environment to set it off. At this moment, Lu Qianshan, who was in Ice Ray City, had an extremely cold temperament. She might not lose to the rows of flowers in her formal dress. Tisk, tisk. Ryu Sinan commented in his heart, this eldest disciple seems to have an extremely high understanding of the ice element. The elders of the various sects sitting at the side twitched their mouths. They still could not understand. When did this demon exterminator from the realm hall become an elder of the sect of all times? She even brought a disciple to participate in the Ice Ray martial arts competition that was held every few years. The first round of the competition begins, the referee announced. Mississippi, the contestant who had just walked onto the arena, scratched her head and smiled. Although you're a woman, since you're here to participate in the competition, don't blame me for, bam. Before she could finish, she was sent flying by a gust of cold air. Sect of all times disciple, Lu Qianshan wins. Next, the referee's announcement continued. This was because in the second and third rounds, as long as Lu Qianshan fought, no matter how strong or weak her opponent was, they were all killed instantly without exception. She's too strong. No one can withstand one move from her. Revolving core realm. Everyone was shocked. Ryu Sinan shook his head and said to himself, the patriarch sent a disciple with such strength to participate in the Ice Ray martial arts competition. It's a waste of talent. In the finals, Lu Qianshan still defeated her opponent instantly and became the champion. This made the martial artists who had painstakingly come to watch the competition break down. After all, the entire competition was not exciting at all. In fact, it was extremely boring. Refund. I want a refund. Ding. Disciple Lu Qianshan won the Ice Ray martial arts competition's champion. Reward, 100 reputation points. Ding. Sect reputation points, 2,100. No way. Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the study, put down the novel he wrote and broke down. Only 100 points. That's good enough. The system said, don't be greedy. Alright. Jun Changshao picked up the novel again and wiped his tears as he read. This author wrote too tragically. I've cried a few times. Ding. Disciple Su Xiaomua won the XX competition's champion. Reward, 100 reputation points. Ding. Disciple He won the XX competition's champion. Reward, 100 reputation points. In the following period of time, Jun Changshao often heard notifications. His original complaining mentality gradually faded. After all, it was a little less, but many little drops made an ocean. Ah! How wonderful this world is! Chapter 1567. The disciples played the role of tools in the competition while Jun Changshao collected reputation points in the sect. His days were comfortable and comfortable. The outside world began to boil over. If it was just a martial arts competition, there would be nothing strange about it. However, in half a month's time, the disciples of the sect of all times had won all the competitions held in the major cities. As the news spread, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Oh my God, the sect of all times has also taken the championship of the Golden Seal City competition. This is already the 10th. I heard that the competition was completely one-sided. Many of the participants were defeated before they could even withstand the second move. What shocked the world the most was that the champion was not just one disciple, but a group of disciples. This meant that the sect of all times had participated in all the competitions. As long as they participated, they would definitely win the championship. They would not give the other sects any chance of survival. That's too scary. Could it be that all the disciples of the sect of all times are super strong? I heard that all the participants were at the revolving core realm. It was normal for a sect to have outstanding disciples participate in the martial arts competition and win first place. However, it was a little shocking for so many disciples to win the championship. Combined with the fact that the sect of all times had caused trouble for the sword-wielding sect and the sharp-blade sect, many cultivators began to face a problem. How strong was the sect of all times now? Mystic rank, there's no doubt about it. I don't think it's just that. The other sects have participated in so many competitions, but they might not be able to win all of them. As Ryu Sinan led his disciples to participate in the competitions and win the championship, the sect of all times' strength became the most discussed topic in the upper realm. Mystic rank. That was the most recognized rank at the moment. As for the truth rank, it could not be achieved just by the disciples winning the championship. It also needed to display the strength of the upper echelons. Patriarch Li Luoqiu reported, "The outside world is talking about our sect. They think that we have the strength of a mystic rank." Jun Changshao was not surprised at all. Sending Lu Qianshan and Su Xiaomua to participate in all kinds of competitions was to let the world know that the sect of all times could easily win the championship. If they still couldn't see the problem, then they should quickly go and have their brains treated. Next. Jun Changshao pulled open his data panel and looked at his achievement value that had increased quite a bit recently. He thought to himself, I just have to wait for the system's approval. The recognition of the upper realm depended on strength. The system's approval depended on financial resources. As long as he had enough achievement points, any problem could be easily solved. Jun Changshao did not summon his disciples back and continued to let them compete outside. He wanted to use their absolute strength to let the world acknowledge that the sect of all times had reached the Xian level. A month later, Lu Qianshan, Su Xiaomua, and the others had won no less than 30 championships. It could be said that they had fought from the east to the west, from the south to the north. Wherever they went, they were invincible. As for his reputation, it had increased from 2,000 points to 5,000 points. The contribution value system was on the verge of collapse. The reputation system had only just begun to show its tip. As it continued to refresh, the items that appeared in the shop could only be bought with reputation. It was no longer the mixed value that it used to be. The trend of substitution was irreversible. One day, the contribution value system would cry, "Brother, I'm going to leave now." The reputation value system said solemnly, "Brother, I will inherit your spirit and provide Gosheng with more cheats. You can go in peace." As the saying goes, each new generation will replace the previous one, and the previous one will die on the beach. Half a year. It was not too long. Unknowingly, it had passed. Lu Qianshan, Su Xiaomua, and the others had returned long ago. They had won a total of 50 championships, completely spreading the name of the sect throughout the upper realm. Ask any martial artist what level the sect of all times was at, and the answer would definitely be Xian level. Ta! Outside the life and death secret realm, Yi Xingchen walked out, his forehead covered in sweat. In the past half a year, he did not participate in any competitions and devoted himself to martial arts training. He had entered the 5th transformation from the 4th transformation. Because of the 10-year promise, all the sect's resources were used on Anyo, which allowed him to advance by 1 transformation in just half a year. Dragon Head Peak. The new main hall was completed. As the face of the sect, it could not be changed frequently. Li Qingyang's design this time was very grand, ensuring that it would not fall behind for a long time. In the past, although the sect of all times gave people a sense of grandeur, it was still a little too secular. Now that the main peak had been greatly modified and decorated with various precious plants, it was not only full of vitality, but also full of immortality. Not bad. Jun Changshao was very satisfied. Ka. Ka. On the training field, a few Diablo mechs were cleaning up the building waste under Du Nan's command. Under the continuous research of the old man Taixian, the number of mechs had increased to 3,000. Because all of them were equipped with soul formations, they could be piloted. The Diablo mechs were originally used for battle. Considering that the energy consumption could be controlled, Jun Changshao put some of them in charge of the sect's internal affairs, truly converting the mechs from military to civilian use. During this period, many first transformation pills were produced. The process of taking them was very painful, but many disciples broke through to the revolving core realm. According to the latest statistics, the number of first transformation disciples had exceeded 2,000. In less than 200 days, the overall strength of the sect of all times had increased by leaps and bounds. The speed of growth was so fast that it was shocking. It was a pity. There were improvements in all aspects, except for Jun Changshao, who was stuck at the peak of the revolving core realm. He had not triggered the epic mission to break through to the truth-seeking realm. Ding! Disciple Mao Xiaodao has cleaned the toilet 100 times and completed the sect mission. He has received 10 contribution points. It is worth 100%. Ding! Sect contribution points, 670-3200. Ding! Sect achievement points, 100000000. The notification sounded again, and a smile appeared on Go Sheng's face. Achievement points. It had finally exceeded 10 million. Schwa. He opened the system data interface and tapped on the sect level without hesitation. The option to spend 10 million achievement points popped up. Yes, ding. 10 million achievement points spent to upgrade. Ding. Sect achievement points, 0, ding. Checking if you have reached the standard. Jun Changshao almost cursed. I've already spent all my money. What's the point of checking? Ding. The sect has been recognized by the upper realm. It has met the requirements to upgrade. The strongest sect of all times has been upgraded to a mysterious sect. As expected. Jun Changshao said, spending money might not be enough to upgrade. It still needs to be recognized. The system said, didn't you still succeed? Bullshit. Jun Changshao roared, if we didn't send our disciples out to compete, we would have wasted our achievement value by leveling up carelessly. The system was silent. Although it did not want to admit it, it might be possible. Ding. The sect has been upgraded to a mysterious sect. Obtain 10,000 reputation points. Obtain the right to purchase supreme goods X1. Obtain the 9 heavens divine stone X1. Obtain the heart of the earth horn dragon X1. Schwa. Jun Changshao jumped up from his chair. His expression gradually turned from dull to ecstatic. He had thought that there would be rewards for upgrading the sect to a mysterious sect, but he did not expect it to be so rich. 10,000 reputation points. Supreme goods. Even if it was just one of the two, it would be a huge profit. Does it feel good? Great. The smile on Jun Changshao's face was like a blooming chrysanthemum. Then, he opened the purchased goods column and clicked on the supreme goods. However, he froze instantly because the price was 12,000 reputation points. Damn it. The reputation points rewarded were not enough to buy it. He had to pay another 2,000 points. Chapter 1568. The supreme item required 12,000 reputation points to buy. It was really expensive. After all, many items in the shop were only around 51,000 reputation points. There's a reason why it's expensive, and there's also a benefit to it. After a short moment of consideration, Jun Changshao gritted his teeth and chose to buy it. Ding! The host has spent 12,000 reputation points and obtained Supreme Item X1. It has been transferred to the Space Ring. Ding! Sect reputation points, 8,000. Swoosh! His spiritual sense entered the Space Ring and stopped in front of the big box with a question mark. He prayed sincerely, "May the gods bless me and give me a bunch of divine weapons and equipment." He reached out and touched it. Its surface rippled with golden light. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining Virokana Zen Palm X1. The big box in front of him turned into nothingness, and a yellowed ancient book fell into Jun Changxiao's hands. Virokana Zen Palm. This reminded him of the scene in Kung Fu where Master Xing used a palm technique from the sky to defeat Fire Cloud Evil God. Thus, he flipped through it with a burning gaze. As expected. From the introduction, it was indeed similar. However, what made Jun Changshao depressed was that when he opened the data panel, it could not be matched with the Sect's techniques. This meant that it was only suitable for him and not for the upper echelons and disciples. Since it was obtained from such an expensive supreme item, it must be very powerful after learning it. Retracting his spiritual sense, he returned to the study and began to study it seriously. It's too difficult. After studying for an entire night, Jun Changshao broke down. From the moves and chants of Virokana Zen Palm, there should be nothing special about it. However, when he really understood it, it contained extremely profound meaning. It would take a long time to master it. Spending more than 10,000 reputation points to buy a martial art that was difficult to learn and master, no matter how he looked at it, it was a loss. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and sighed. After leveling up to a mysterious master, he also received the 9 Heavens Divine Stone and the Earth Horn Dragon Heart. One was similar to an ore, and the other was similar to a medicinal herb. The name sounded good, but what was the value? The system said, maybe it will come in handy in the future. I hope so. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and said helplessly, the reward for this upgrade didn't give me any substantial help. At least the sect has entered the Xian level, and the distance to the celestial level. The system could not help but laugh. After all, there was the word truth, and the word Tao behind it, so it was still far from reaching the celestial level. It's too hard. The main storyline quests in the upper realm are too difficult. If the fiend ancestor were to hear this, he would definitely spit at him. Can you be more difficult than me? After being trapped in the devilish domain for more than half a year, he had tried to set up several teleportation arrays in succession, but all of them ended in failure. No. There must be some details that were overlooked. The fiend ancestor was not discouraged as he continued to ponder over the array formation's route. Sir System. Don't waste time. You didn't neglect the details, but the other point was long gone. Even the entire hidden spirit island had been reduced to nothingness. Even if you set it up until the end of time, it would still be impossible to succeed. In the past 6 months, the upper realm was very peaceful. In particular, the buried moon pavilion seemed to have disappeared without a trace, making the realm hall very comfortable. The entire upper realm did not know that this mysterious hidden force that had existed for a long time had been mostly destroyed by Jun Changshao. The 10 great celestial sects were still foolishly sending people to search for it. Most of them were destroyed. Could it be that there was something missing? That's right. There were still survivors in the buried moon pavilion. At that time, the fiend ancestor chose to take refuge in the hidden spirit island and only took the members of the headquarters with him. There were still many members of the branches who had not arrived. Among them was the great guardian who was in charge of presiding over the 10 great celestial demonic bodies when they entered the demonic territory, as well as his hundreds of subordinates. Whoosh! Whoosh! On the West Sea, A strong wind blew. The great guardian held the token with a blank expression on his face. The black-robed old man next to him was very puzzled. "We've been searching for a month, but we still can't find the hidden spirit island. Could we have come to the wrong place?" "Impossible." The great guardian said with a decisive tone, "It's in this sea. Search. Search carefully." "Yes." The subordinates could only continue to search nearby. In the end, after searching for a few more months, they still could not find the hidden spirit island. They were worried that the 10 great celestial sects would discover them, so they could only leave and find a place to hide. "Great Guardian." The black-robed old man said worriedly, "The headquarters has not contacted us for a long time. Could something have happened?" The great guardian was silent. He had thought about this problem a long time ago. Under normal circumstances, the headquarters would send information almost every once in a while. Now that almost a year had passed, there was still no news. Coupled with the fact that they could not find the hidden spirit island, something must have happened. Could it be, speak? The black-robed old man hesitated, but he still said what was on his mind. "The 10 great celestial sects found the hidden spirit island and all of our people." The great guardian fell into deep thought and said in a deep voice, "We can't rule out this possibility. Lord Demon Ancestor, no." The great guardian guessed what the black-robed old man wanted to say and interrupted, "Although the Lord Demon Ancestor has just been resurrected, he is not someone that the 10 great celestial sects can easily kill. Because it was a belief, it was brainless worship." Sigh. The black-robed old man shook his head and said, "Then why is there no news? If the headquarters was discovered by the 10 great celestial sects and we were not summoned by the Lord Demon Ancestor, there is only one possibility." The great guardian said in a serious tone, "He entered the demonic territory in advance." Needless to say, the great guardian's guess was right. The demon ancestor was in the demonic territory, but the reason he entered was not because he was chased by the 10 great celestial sects and had nowhere to go, but because he entered by himself. In that case, the black-robed old man said, "Why didn't he summon us?" There may be 2 reasons. First, the demon ancestor fought with the 10 great celestial sects and then entered the demonic territory with injuries. He is recuperating now, so it is difficult for him to care about anything else. Second, the 10 great celestial sects used a special method to strengthen the seal of the demonic territory. It is difficult for the demon ancestor to break it from the inside. The black-robed old man said, "Which reason do you think it is?" The great guardian thought for a moment and said, "Since the demon ancestor has a way to enter, he will definitely summon us. Now that there is no news, it could be the second reason. He is trapped in the demonic territory and can't get out." This guy's deduction seemed very professional, but it was actually the opposite of the truth. This was because it had nothing to do with the 10 great celestial sects. However, the final judgment was correct. The demon ancestor was indeed trapped inside. What should we do? What else can we do? Think of a way to break the seal. The black-robed old man's mouth twitched slightly. The seal set by the 10 great celestial sects has been unshakable for 100,000 years. Now that it has been strengthened, how are we going to break it? There is bound to be a flaw. The great guardian said firmly, "There must be a flaw in the seal." Sect of all times. Jun Changshao entered the spacetime secret realm again. For the past few months, as long as the CD was restored, he would definitely enter to comprehend the Virokana Zen palm. He finally made significant progress. How is the power? Whether the move was strong or not, it needed actual combat to prove it. Therefore, Jun Changshao walked out of the spacetime secret realm and planned to go to Spirit Beast Peak to find Hall Master Z to practice. Patriarch. However, just as he arrived at the Spirit Beast Hall, Li Luochio's urgent voice transmission rang in his ears. "Elder Lu is in big trouble outside. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.